And now, live from the man cave, Studio B. I'm actually standing at the edge up here, I guess, on a 5th of July. There's some important dates we're dealing with right now. Welcome to This Is My Brain. I got Teddy the Bester on the show, Dennis Marburger, the history man, George Skandi, Gjergji. We're going to have a great conversation tonight, so get ready. I am Jeremy Scott Gibbs, and this is My Brain. Oh, yeah. It didn't zoom out, Scotty. And there's the fish. Neither one of them zoomed out. Can you believe that?
You're a gay fish.
Thank you. That one was really loud. The gay fish. And we already had a lot of people in chat. Gypsy Magic twice giving the gay fish a high five there. There we go. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. It is the 5th of July. My introduction wasn't great, but it worked. It'll work. Welcome, guys.
Greetings.
I did print out a paper. I didn't grab it.
That's okay.
We'll have our
Our
man behind the...
Scott, would you be so kind as to
We know we can
Grab
talk
the-
about.
What you need?
papers? They're in the
printer?
it's in the printer in there, and I printed it and forgot. But I want to get into a lot of the history of the American Revolution. And I thought Gjergji would be great to sit in because coming from Albania, coming here, he's got a certain perspective of,
What you want me to feel? Because
No, I just we'll get into it, but I want to ask you some questions about what you knew of America as you were coming here, you know, and just was it just touted as the land of the free, you know, or what your perspective was, and we'll get into it. But first, we got to do a little disclaimer, and we're gonna do dinner recap. How's our audio sound over there, Scott?
Sounds good.
Okay, my ears are a little hot, so that's why I was checking with you. Let's see, I gotta check this screen. There it is. All right, notice, here it is. Notice this podcast is raw, unfiltered, and completely politically incorrect. We say Merry Christmas and the Pledge of Allegiance, especially the part about one nation under God. We thank our troops for their service. Thank you, Scott, and those in our audience. And you served in your home country, so we praise you for that. We recognize 3 genders, male, female, and mentally ill. Those are the ones we do recognize. As adults, we enjoy adult beverages. I think I'm the only one enjoying it. Yeah, so cheers to me. We cuss, we do not curse or swear. Look up the definitions. We love Jesus, but we hate religion and religious hypocrites. If any of this offends you, please leave. And that'll be the totality of our disclaimers for tonight. How about that prime rib?
That was great. Fantastic.
Dude, I had a prime rib in the freezer, and I said, we were hanging out at the lake yesterday, and I hit you up yesterday. I said to Scott, I said, hey, man, I got this prime rib pulled out. I pulled it out yesterday. It's all thawed. I said, what are you doing on Sunday? He's like, I'll be over to cook it. I go, hell yeah. So he cooked it up phenomenal, cooked up, had some of the small Reds and Yukon Gold potatoes and smashed those up, olive oiled them, some other spices, and then put some Parmesan cheese on it. Are you hearing all right there, Gjergji?
well, talking about olive oil,
Yeah.
I'm going next month in Albania to visit my family, and I sign a contract with somebody over there. They produce over there. Every farmer that is near Adriatic Sea and Ionian Sea.
Yep.
Where the weather is nice and warm. Everybody's planting olive trees, and now they are exporting all over the country.
Nice. What's the, isn't it like 10 years before they come to maturity and they can live to be, several centuries old. Some of the old.
Oh yeah, you can see the old ones. It's like, and it's very interesting for me that I do some woodwork. You can't find an olive tree that is solid.
Mhm.
You can find holes and broken and twist and turn, but it's such a
It's rare.
good tree, such a good wood to make pieces of art.
Yeah. Do you get the knot ball?
Mhm.
And you
Oh
get
my
and
God,
dude,
those are.
they're gorgeous, aren't
I'm going to get some over there for the hunting knives that I make. So
they? Nice, nice. Maybe Scott and I'll have you make us a custom set of culinary
That'd be
knives with some
nice.
handles, right?
Yeah.
That'd be badass.
Yeah.
So, anyways, good dinner tonight. Very good, excellent. In fact, it's been a good weekend. Dennis, what did you do for 4th of July or even Friday? What did you do this weekend? You kind of relax, or did you go out and hit some fireworks?
Well,
What'd you do?
we had family over, had a wonderful meal, and there were fireworks all around the neighborhood. In fact, we have a neighbor that we live on a small lake. There's not much of a distance, not too much between their property and ours, but there's a bunch of houses around this lake, and they're on a peninsula. It's called an island, but it's really a peninsula.
Okay,
And they put on a fireworks show there that is,
beautiful, huh?
oh yeah, it's thousands of dollars. It has to be. It's
Yeah.
like you're downtown or something like that. But
That's awesome.
so that was great. And then studying of the Declaration of Independence, and my wife gave me a framed copy.
Really?
It looks beautiful. And we have it in the family
Yeah.
room, and discussing some of the principles of the Declaration, and the thinking, the philosophy of the great brave American Revolutionary patriots. And I'll take what I think would be their side in disclaiming the disclaimer regarding the Pledge of Allegiance
Oh, right. Yes, I know. Go ahead.
for various reasons.
Yes, sir.
Number one, as we talked about the last time I was here, the word allegiance comes from the French word liege, which means Lord.
Yes.
And so there's one Lord, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but also America. The structure that was set up was to be a union of states,
Mm-hmm.
not one centralized glob or blob. And the person that wrote it, people should study the history of this, of the Pledge of Allegiance. Is a pledge of submission. That it's a rejection of the Declaration of Independence and of Christian values. And it was written by a man named Francis Bellamy, who he and his cousin were very far left.
Wow.
And it was a combination of a flag company trying to sell more flags. So it originally said, "I
Okay.
pledge allegiance to my flag," but also Francis Bellamy and his cousin and the National Federation of Teachers were promoting anti-Jeffersonianism,
Okay.
and they came along with something called the Bellamy Salute. And if people see the Bellamy Salute, they'll remember it, but they won't associate it with America. That they associate it with Germany, Nazi Germany, or fascist Italy,
Right.
because it was American politicians and Americans trying to overthrow the Jeffersonian system
Mm-hmm.
to bring in totalitarianism who would do this. And then Mussolini saw it and said, "Oh, that's like something that the Romans, the ancient Romans would do, the Roman fascists would do." And so he was doing the Bellamy Salute, and Hitler saw it. And so,
That's what they did.
yeah, so the Heil Hitler
Yeah.
salute we see was really the Bellamy Salute, which went along with the Pledge of Allegiance, which, for all those various reasons, I will not recite, except for under God with liberty and justice for all.
There you go.
So there, yep.
I appreciate that, Dennis. I
You're-
love it. I love it.
You're welcome, Jeremy.
I do love you, buddy. You're doing great. Let's see. Yeah. No king except Christ, what Gypsy was saying.
Amen.
I appreciate it. You guys already all blown up the chat already. It's awesome. So I want to start with a few things. One of the things that I wanted to look at first and foremost, and I talked to you and Teddy about this, was the idea that there's nowhere in history that we've had this set of circumstances that the American Revolution came about under. You know, George, you come from Albania. You went, you know, it was communistic when you left, and then shortly thereafter it fell. There's other countries that have gone through communist revolutions, and then most of them have all collapsed after that. I think maybe China, which is quasi-communist with a capitalistic focused economy. But those are all revolutions within a given society. So when you're going through your revolution, you're fighting against your own government and your own neighbors that are there. Whereas when we fought the revolution, when collectively, not we, but at the table, but when our founding fathers fought the revolution here in America, we were fighting against a government that was all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. They were not here. They would send over different edicts. They would send over troops to try to enforce those edicts. They would make demands on the people, which is where the majority of our stipulations in the Bill of Rights came from. But even well before that, they were doing a lot of things, but they were doing it from across the sea. And at a certain point, you had this beautiful situation where all of these people are like, why are we still aligned with the home country? Because we're really our own independent colonies. We're our own places, and they tried. And Dennis, you're gonna dive into some of this. They tried with the Olive Branch Resolution. Is that right? Resolution? Petition. Olive Branch Petition.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a number of other documents we're going to get into. Some of those, just talking about they tried to either reconcile to be like, hey, you're way over there. We need to have more autonomy. And at a certain point, the autonomy was we need complete independence. And we've read the Declaration of Independence so many times, the preamble of it, usurpations and this tyranny rises to the level where the people break off their form of government. And I think it's very interesting that form of government was across an ocean. It wasn't down the road in a Capitol building. And so I think it made it that much, not easier, but that much more of a divine dynamic for the people to say, we're done with this. Does that make sense to you guys? What do you think about that, Dennis, just looking at it?
Makes sense exactly, because this is how happened also in a lot of European countries, especially Balkan area, when Ottoman Empire was over there for 400 or 500 years, and they started with the Greek Revolution.
So the Ottoman Empire is controlling other vassal states.
All the Balkan area.
And so those vassal states
Bulgaria,
then go... right.
Serbia, Albania, Greece. So pretty much was the same thing. The Greeks started after 400 years under Ottoman Empire. The Greeks started a revolution, and they kicked the Ottoman Empire out. 100 years later, in 1912, Albania became also independent country. That Ottoman Empire left, and so was Serbia and Bulgaria and all of this. So it's something that when every nation has enough, is enough.
And that's a parallel, but even that's a little bit removed from. But I agree with you. It's a big parallel.
I'd like to point out that I think the folks in the Balkans under that time probably had to deal with a lot more oppression and taxation as the American colonists. I was talking to Dennis before the show, and we were comparing tax rates, right?
Right.
So I don't know if you guys know this, but the tax rate for the American colonists, before the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Do any of you have a number or percentage-wise?
I don't. Give it to us.
Between 1 and 1.5%.
Wow.
Taxation in Britain was between 5 and 7%. And now we have a federal state taxation rate of between, you'd say, 37 to a little over 50%.
Yeah, and depending on what you're doing and what you pay for, it could be,
But my original point is that while we just had to deal with a little bit of a tax increase, that was passed under a parliament, not a king. One of the main misconceptions of the American Revolution that period is that the king ordered all these taxes arbitrarily, and he was a tyrant. But it was actually the British Parliament and the Prime Minister that would vote on these laws in a, it would be basically parliamentary democracy, enforcing that kind of stuff on the colonists.
Yeah.
But where the folks in the Ottomans, they had to pay probably, basic Ottoman Empire taxes, but they also, for the most part in the Balkans, Albania, a lot of them were non-Muslim, so they also had to pay the jizya, or non-Muslim tax.
Right.
If you did not pay that tax, you would be
You have to be converted Muslim.
be converted, or they would kill you.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and part of that too, the idea. That's what I was going to say. The distinction was with the Balkans being controlled by. You say it was
Turkey.
Turkey.
Turkish, yeah.
Those were kingdoms that went in and conquered an existing ethnicity, and then tried to control them. And at a certain point, you're going to foment rebellion. Whereas when you look at the Americas, I think one of the unique things is that you had British subjects who came to found. I mean, and they were extremely loyal. You look at the names of the majority of the new settlements throughout America. It's incredible. You know, I mean, Georgia's named after King George. You know, it's
Jamestown.
Yeah, Jamestown. You had all of these things. Maryland.
Maryland.
You know, you have all of these names. There was a large allegiance, but it wasn't an existing population that the British Crown then took over. It was a group of people that came to settle the new land, and then got to a certain point with still being tied to the homeland, where they said, enough's enough. We've tried to work with you. Dennis, your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, I think it's a very good point. Yes, and as Teddy was pointing out, and I think Gjergji was remarking as well. I mean, the brutality of the Turkish Empire in the Balkans, and also and then east, right, from like 1894, 1895 through 1925 or 26. The genocide of the Christians. The Armenians and the Pontic Greeks and the Assyrians and that sort of thing. Yes, that was awful. But yes, an excellent point that Jeremy's made here, which is, so here you have Englishmen coming to the Americas and becoming British Americans, and then saying, at a certain point, we're not going to let London tell us how to live and how to rule our lives. And in fact, there was it was an unwritten British Constitution, and they felt that the English government, the King and the Parliament, were violating it.
Right.
So they had all sorts of tests of wills going on back and forth, and then at a certain point, the part that is more well known is the Declaration of Independence and time immediately leading up to that. But there had been a long train of abuses, a long train of resistance, right? 1761 with James Otis Jr.
Yep.
Against the writs of assistance, and things like that.
Yes.
And we also had, just a little bit after we had our independence, we also had the Shays Rebellion and the Whiskey Rebellion, where rebellious spirit against any new taxes, even under the independent American government, were resisted upon by local communities and all of that.
Shays Rebellion is particularly interesting. Or maybe the Whiskey Rebellion as well, I guess. But reading Gary North's version, the late Dr. Gary North's version about the Shays Rebellion, was that John Hancock had been the governor of Massachusetts. This is after independence had been successfully defended.
Yeah.
And in the treaty that the king signed, this is a key point. He didn't sign a peace treaty with the United States of America. He signed a peace treaty with each of the 13 states.
Yes.
And then this takes us back to the Lee Resolution, passed on July 2nd, approved on July 2nd of 1776.
Right.
These united colonies are right out to be 13 free and independent states, plural. So, okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, since July 4th is not a birthday. July 4th is not a birthday. July 4th is not a birthday. It's an anniversary of divorce. The 13 states divorced the British Empire.
That makes sense.
Makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And then apparently the Articles of Confederation, I was checking this with my friend Dave Benner, something that he wrote. In fact, I think I texted this to you and Shane.
Yes.
But the Articles of Confederation, which set up the first general government for the 13 free and independent states, was approved in 1781, apparently. I thought it was 1777. But anyway, subsequent.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, getting back to Shays Rebellion. Okay, so we're under the Articles of Confederation. John Hancock had been governor of Massachusetts for 2 terms. Then he got the gout, and then he was replaced, and he was a Jeffersonian Republican.
Okay.
All right. Then he was replaced by a Federalist, a Hamiltonian, and they came up with a scheme. And so the scheme was, since each of the states had issued their own debt for the Revolutionary War, once they got their man in power, they said, well, let's send agents out to buy up the war debt that the widows have and the veterans have and the shopkeepers have, and we'll pay just pennies on the dollar because it's almost worthless, but so
Right.
And then they bought it up, and then they said, okay, we bought up all this war debt. Now let's get a law through the Massachusetts legislature to be signed by the governor, who's our man, that'll say, we're honor bound to redeem this at par at 100 cents on the dollar. They probably bought it like 3, 4, 5, 6 cents on the dollar.
Oh, wow.
Paid in silver. And so that would be a huge tax burden on the people of Massachusetts to be able for them to do that.
Yeah.
And that's where Shays' Rebellion came from. And people say, oh, look, the people don't want to pay their bills. It's the debtors are rebelling against the creditors. No, a lot of the people with Shays, and maybe he himself, they were creditors, but they were getting ripped off, and they saw what was going on.
Right.
But it was that rebellion, which my understanding, the way North wrote it, I believe, they did succeed, I think, in overturning the scheme, but some people, and this might have included Henry Knox, who'd been Washington's chief artillery officer, were sending him letters saying, oh my gosh, Your Excellency, look what's going on here in Massachusetts. We need to have a stronger, more active general government than the Confederation because of this.
Right.
And this is one of the things that led to the calling of the Constitutional Convention. Of course, this is years after the Declaration of Independence. So folks, if you heard somebody talking about 1776 and July 4th, they start talking about the Constitution, they're off base because
they don't mesh.
That's it.
But I always, July 4th is when I just think it was like they divorced and they pulled down the George III statue. That's the extent of it for the most part. It's not like the Constitution was founded or the foundation of the system we have. It's just, hey, Britain, we're kind of separating from you. And then, but there was a 7-year-long struggle for independence after that initial date because we still have the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Right. And there was a long lead up to this thing too, which is fascinating history for all these people. Like I say, James Otis Jr. and
I want to dive into some of that, Dennis, for sure. The lead up to it, because I've studied the Suffolk.
Oh, the resolves. Yeah.
Which, when you read through those, they're a really good template for what would later become a Declaration of Independence.
Was that 1774?
I thought it was 5.
Oh, okay.
But it could. I'll look that up right now. But those are so off the top of your guys' heads, because I don't know if we put a list together necessarily, but my two historians here, off the top of your guys' heads, you've listed out a couple already, and I just brought up Suffolk. How many would you say off the top of your head, different resolutions or documents? A dozen?
Yeah, well,
2 dozen?
It's a good point.
Because you got all the colonies.
Right. Well, and then you had there was the Continental Association, right, that they came together with.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of different steps that were taken along the way to get something rolling for each of these 13 states to be independent. And by the way, there's resolutions, and then there were people taking the legal step of saying we're leaving the British Empire. The states did it individually.
Yeah.
And I think Virginia and Rhode Island.
You were correct, 1774.
Okay, and North Carolina as well. I think they had actually already seceded from the British Empire before the Declaration of Independence. I think that's how that worked. And so they left at different times.
It says here this document played a significant role. This is the AI summary.
Okay.
Of multiple articles, but it says this. This document played a significant role in unifying colonial resistance against British rule and was endorsed by the First Continental Congress shortly after its adoption. That's another thing too, Dennis, that I want to touch on that most people don't realize. They don't realize how many presidents we had under the Continental Congress.
Or the Articles.
And the Articles of Confederation. We had presided. In fact, Washington was one of the presidents. Wasn't he the president of
Congress at one time?
I thought of the Continental Congress.
Okay. Well, he may have been. There's a man named Hanson, I think, that was the first one.
Okay.
And their terms of office were relatively short.
Yeah, sometimes they were just presiding prelates that were there for a meeting, a large meeting, and then because you have to have somebody to kind of referee stuff,
Right.
And so. Let me look up.
But the lead up to the to the American. And was it really a revolution? That's another interesting thing to think about. So the point that you're making, Jeremy,
Yeah.
is so they were separating. So it was a war of secession.
Maybe that's the right way to come at it. It was what George was talking about with the Balkans, and the Turkey having control over these vassal states that they had conquered at one time or another. And it's very typical. You could even read it in scripture where they would conquer a kingdom and then keep the king, but they would make him subservient to the conquering king, because why wipe out your population and piss everybody else off when I can just conquer you and know you're conquered, and then you pay tribute and you keep your economy
You
going.
wouldn't even have that with the Ottoman Empire. They just conquered. They deposed any aristocracy, unless they disposed any of the aristocracy unless the aristocracy beforehand defected to them,
Right.
such as Hungary, Wallachia, wherever. And there's some Albanian families that did that as well. But for the most part, they directly ruled these provinces throughout the empire through pashas and other military governors.
Exactly.
And the way they would, you had the jizya as well. But another thing they tried to do Islamicize Europe at the time was the Janissary Corps. The Janissary Corps was the bread and butter, cream of the crop of the Ottoman army through 1500s up until 1820s when they were dissolved. But they were all recruited from European males, younger, kids. They were forced to convert to Islam. This is like when they were 10, 11, early teens. They had to do this rigorous training for their whole life to be the Sultan's like elite warriors.
Right.
They not only didn't convert them. What they did is they took the young kids from Balkan area and they took in the train in Turkey. So they took like when they were like 5, 6 years old.
So they're indoctrinated.
And they grew up indoctrinated from Ottoman Empire. And one of them was Gjergji Kastrioti, who is the king of Albania, that is a national hero in Albania now. When they took him, I think he was about like 8, 9 years old. And they prepare him, and he become a very strong general, and he has a lot of success in different wars that they send him. And he took a bunch of Albanians that were in Ottoman army, and they, with pretending that they are going to go and control over their Albania, and when they went over there, they laid down their symbols or Ottoman Empire, and they created the Albanian stronghold for 25 years. So he went together and he connected all the princes in a different area in Albania. And this is why they try a couple of times. The Ottoman Empire tried a couple of times, and they didn't conquer that. But he died after 25 years. He died, and this is when they went in. But he was Hunadi from Hungary, and what was the king of Serbia? I don't remember the name, I think, right now. But they stopped the Ottoman Empire because the Ottoman Empire went right in the walls of Vienna. So they stopped them over there and they pushed them back.
And so that's a huge different dynamic, as we're pointing out, of conquering, indoctrinating, making them subservient, getting tribute, and then having them rebel in a revolution. Whereas, Dennis, to your point, which is backing up what I'm bringing across, is this wasn't really a rebellion as much of it is a national divorce, as you pointed out, and it's this idea of we're breaking away from the government that's across the ocean, but we're already established. I mean, the colonies already had a lot of their own self-governing aspects. And I think that's, to me, the part of driving this home is that you don't have the birth of liberty and freedom that we have historically in this country without that already independence. Whereas what George is talking about with the Ottoman Empire and then all the countries that are subservient, they're straight up coming at it from rebellion. They're not going, we've been free. You look at the colonies, since the 1600s, So for a good 150 years at least, there was no cell phones, there's no internet, there's no direct connection to Great Britain. So when they're doing stuff over here in the colonies, it could be 3-4 months before you get an answer on something. So the autonomy was almost as much as you could get, and it was only after the pressure, because Washington fought for Great Britain, French and Indian Wars.
Yeah.
So you didn't have until the British government, as Teddy pointed out, Parliament and the Prime Minister, as well as the King, felt that they were losing control, which was an illusion on their part. They were kind of deceived to thinking that they could control people over here. But they were losing control, and the people were like, listen, we want to just keep doing what we're already doing. We're free over here. And we have our own sets of laws and our own set of ideas that we're operating under, founded from, being passed down from it. But they already were in such a huge place of autonomy in the colonies that to divorce the nation state was just, I think, really came down to a matter of semantics. And the only reason we had a Revolutionary War is because the British government pushed back on it and said, no, you're not going to divorce. We're going to, in that scenario of divorce, we're going to take you to court and make sure we get the house. We're going to.
Yeah. Well, it would be, but the analogy might not even be taken to court. It's just saying, we're going to force you.
Yeah.
We're going to initiate force against you. But it's interesting too when you bring up the French and Indian Wars, because I think a lot of the stuff that happened in the minds of the British authorities was in reaction to costs that they bore because of the French and Indian Wars, and then thinking that the British American colonists then should be more obedient. Maybe should start paying something to pay for the defense.
Some tribute.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they were trying to establish more and more control over these people, and they just said no.
Right. Well, it would be like this if you lived out on a farm. And we've had it in America, obviously, because of our foundation. But you live out on a farm, and all of a sudden, the tax guy, starts coming around, and starts demanding, under some statute, some guy somewhere else, far off, passed against you. A good portion of the people that were tarred and feathered in the colonies were the tax collectors. They were run out on a rail, as you would say.
Wasn't there like a thing in the Bible about tax collectors, or Paul was Paul?
Matthew.
Matthew was a tax collector,
Yeah.
and then Jesus went up to him, and like the disciples or something like, oh, why would you go up to the tax collector or something like? I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah, you're paraphrasing, yeah.
But
yeah.
That's what happened, right?
Right. Well, they even accused Jesus at a certain point in the Gospels of hanging out with tax collectors and sinners. Tax collectors and sinners.
Yeah. Well, they saw tax collectors at the similar level to prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did.
Oh, absolutely. Because in that type of situation, it was nothing for them to not only collect the tax, but to shake you down for more.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, of course.
It would be like the police, in these boss hog little counties down south, or some of these, places that are a little bit more remote. They pull you over and they go, well, we could write you a ticket and you got to come back to court, or you could just, give me a couple $100 and be on your way. It's like, it's the same, we've got it dualistically with the sheriff, or not the sheriff, but the policemen and the tax collectors.
So when they did things like that,
Yeah.
Speaking about the British Empire now, and things like the Stamp Act,
Yes.
when you hear the response of the British Americans, and of course they're split. It's not like everybody agreed, right?
Right.
So the question was, how do you affect to defend your liberty, granted by God, when you're under this kind of a pressure? And I think now we can look up who said this, but I believe it might have been John Dickinson who said if you meekly acquiesce, or you go along with what they're trying to do to you, that you will invite additional attacks. If you appease the government, you'll condemn future generations as well as your own.
Yes.
To the misery. And,
yes.
And maybe he said it, or maybe it was somebody else, but one of them said it, and then you'll be remembered by posterity in a very negative way if you do that sort of thing.
Well, and it's echoed in some of our founding fathers' later writings, where they were talking about the tyranny over here. They're like, we're going to reject that. And that's why they warned about foreign entanglements. They warned about standing armies. They warned about all of these things, because the only reason to have a standing army in any given country when you're not under attack directly is to go and attack somebody else. There's preparation, but they put it in later in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution of having a well-regulated militia. Well, there's debate that goes back and forth, but the fact of the matter is our founding fathers knew a well-regulated militia just means disciplined private people that joined up to protect their homeland.
Right. And the other thing, besides attacking other countries, would be oppressing the people at home, which they had seen with the Redcoats, which is why they were so, the vast majority were so opposed to having a standing army.
Well, that's why we don't, very rarely does anybody ever even look at the Third Amendment,
Yeah.
and that's about no quartering.
Right.
They shall have no quartering.
Right. And of course, that's from decades anyway,
Yeah.
years and years later in the Constitution. But yeah, they remembered that from the pre-Revolutionary War days.
Absolutely. No soldier less in times of
And then in 17
war and just compensation, right?
And by the way, while we're talking about all these things, these documents and resolutions and the history, and there's so many details and dates and names,
Yeah. I'm pulling up the timeline right now.
Well, I think the Supreme Court nowadays would probably allow
stop,
quartering
Teddy.
soldiers
Now you're going
because
black
there's a discrepancy or there's a loophole or there's no precedent as they've justified before or breaks.
Well, it's also why we have the Fourth Amendment about the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures, because the British soldiers were coming in and just seizing things. I mean, it's well known at this table that the founding fathers, the vast majority of the higher end artillery, and even the personal muskets that most men carried, were their own property.
Yeah, privately owned. Yeah.
All of the artillery, unless they confiscated it from the British during wartime, I think 98% of it was all from private citizens. And if you think about that, I've got a cannon on my yard, and I'm going to loan it to these colonialists to fight, the British Army. You think? George, ask George, because he probably does. But Dennis, I don't think you have a cannon in your yard. George may. I know that Scott over there's got a few
Mortars.
Well, we've talked about some of his artillery. He doesn't have a tank or anything like that, but these. I know George does some work with firearms, but having these weapons, none of the weapons that we would have in this room would ever rise to the level of the government coming and knocking on your door, going, "Hey, can we rent that from you? We're gonna fight," or you picking up your stuff and hauling it over. These guys had cannons.
Yep.
You're like,
Right.
what is?
We also had cannons. I mean, it wasn't that hard to make cannons that you needed a good blacksmith to do it. I mean, anything that the British government or empire had, besides like top of the line Royal Navy stuff, we had skilled tradesmen or craftsmen that could make it.
Yeah.
But now they've limited or degraded the Second Amendment and increased their own.
But that's what I'm saying
weapons.
is the vast majority of the weapons on the colonist side of the Revolutionary War were from private citizens.
Correct.
Yep.
Either renting or donating, whatever.
They use those for hunting. They use it to protecting their property, their homes, the people. If you see, I'm not going so far to American Revolution that there was a musket that they used to from the barrel. And if you see the Western movies with people that got a land and they build a house,
they gotta have.
You have 2 or 3 lever action rifles running around the house, and plus the revolvers.
Right.
And they need that for hunt. They need it for protection and everything. So now, if the revolution will start, and I'm going to be part of this revolution, and I'm pro those guys, I'm going to grab from my house 2 or 3 of them, and here, guys, here, have it.
Absolutely. But then you think about it, as Teddy's saying, they could manufacture these things, but you look at it and go, wow, these guys had their own. You're talking about a guy who owns a plantation. He's one of the founding fathers. And how many, we'll ask this question a little later, how many of them went bankrupt? Because it was a vast majority of the signers of the Declaration were either bankrupt or houses burned down, families destroyed, wiped out. But they put their life and their treasure truly on the line. But to think about it is, this is a guy that's got a plantation, right, in the New World, and he's got his own cannon or a couple cannons, and you're thinking, what were they facing on a daily basis that they thought, I need my own cannon up here, right? I got some handguns. We got concealed carry. We have to go and get a concealed carry permit currently in the state of Michigan.
Yep.
just to have a pistol on us. These are guys that had the highest level of military equipment in private usage on their property.
And that's my point. It was peer. What we had at that time was peer to peer to what the British, would have weapons wise, not discipline or, or tactics wise. But I mean, we even had a little bit more advanced technology in some places, like the long rifle, the Kentucky long rifle.
Correct.
Yes.
That could pick off people and be more accurate.
Yeah.
But not what I was saying now. If we're probably going to be comparing what happened, in 1776 to July 4th, 1776 to now 2026, is that it was peer-to-peer weaponry. But now our citizenry has been so limited.
Right.
And the government has only gotten stronger with technology and, as we said, limitations. And we had Joe Biden says, like, come on, man, why are you going against the government? We got drones and nukes and all that, and tanks and airplanes. You can't fight against that.
F-16s, man.
F-16s.
What are you going to do?
Open the balcony and shoot from the balcony with your shotgun. We're in the middle of the D.C. Stupid idiot.
Yeah.
They're coming to arrest you in 2 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Dennis, what were you going to say, buddy?
Well, yes. So also, as we look at the different dates, tomorrow's a day there was a significant thing issued.
I pulled up the timeline, but I wanted you to break it down. This is kind of the timeline, but I want to get to your point, Dennis, about July 2nd, 1776. Let me read through a few of these, and then I want you to expound on these really good. So this is American Revolution. This is the National Park Service, so I tend to trust them a little. But you had in 1763, you had the 7 Years' War. There was a Treaty of Paris. They call it the French. They call it the 7 Years' War, but it's really the French and Indian is how we know it colloquially. You have the passage of the Stamp Act in 65. So this is 11 years before everything's going on. Look at this. British troops occupy Boston. So it wasn't like the colonies had these huge amount of troops just everywhere, like you would think about it if it was an occupying, like he's talking about with the Ottoman Empire, where they're coming in and occupying and they need to bring a huge show of troops. There wasn't a lot. And so when they actually came in there, it was a pretty volatile situation. So look at this, spring 1772, committees of correspondence are established throughout the colonies to coordinate American response to British colonial policy. So as the British is losing control, they're trying to mandate more and more things. 1774, the British Parliament passes the Coercive Acts. We've talked about that before on shows, Dennis, but I want you to hit those when I finish the list here. Often called the Intolerable Acts in America. Among other actions, Britain closes the port of Boston and requires British troops to be housed in taverns and vacant buildings. That's where the Third Amendment and the Bill of Rights comes from. War breaks out. So before, people don't always realize this, before we do as historians, but before the actual Declaration of Independence, in April 1775, the first shots of the Revolutionary War are fired on. And I want to do this real quick. This is hilarious. Theron X posted this. Breaking news, 72 killed resisting gun confiscation in Massachusetts. The National Guard unit seeks to confiscate a cache of recently banned assault weapons were ambushed by elements of the paramilitary extremist factions. Military and law enforcement sources estimate that 72 were killed and more than 200 injured by government forces before government forces were compelled to withdraw. Speaking after the class, Massachusetts Governor Thomas Gage declared that the extremist faction was made up of local citizens, has links to radical right-wing tax protest movements. Gage blamed the extremists for the recent incidents of vandalism directed against the Internal Revenue offices. The governor, who described the group's organization as criminals, issued an executive order authorizing the summary arrest of any individuals who has interfered with the government's efforts to secure law and order. The military raid on the extremist arsenal followed widespread refusal by the local citizenry to turn over recently outlawed assault weapons. Gage issued a ban on military-style assault weapons and ammunition earlier this week. This decision followed a meeting in a meeting in early this month between government and military leaders at which the governor authorized the forcible confiscation of illegal arms. And it keeps going here. This was, and I want to read this last part, and this, my fellow Americans who do not know your history, this is how the American Revolution began April 20th, 1775. And I think that's so important because the way that they worded it and you read it out shows you what they were dealing with and what we're dealing with now. It makes me think of Ruby Ridge because I've studied that and my band has a song about it. But that's the whole idea of they came to confiscate it, never like that. Well, if you wrote it in today's terminology, looking at it from what actually happened then, we wouldn't stand for it either. It would be bloodshed. Anyway, so let me finish this one. So that's 1770, Massachusetts, Lexington and Concord, November 1775. British Governor of Virginia, Lord Dumore, issues a proclamation offering freedom to any slaves of the rebellious Americans who were able to enter British lines. The Battle of Bunker Hill, most people don't realize that was well before the Declaration of Independence, or not well before, a month before. In the first major action of the war, inexperienced colonial soldiers hold off hardened British veterans for more than 2 hours at Breed's Hill. Although eventually forced to abandon their position, including the higher ground of Bunker Hill overlooking Boston, the Patriots show that they were not intimidated by the long lines of red-coated infantry. Of the 2,200 British seeing action, more than 1,000 ended up dead or wounded. All right, so that's a year before. I said a month, a year and a month before. June 1775. 1776, February. A force of loyalists, Americans who wanted to remain to British, most of them Scots descent, nothing against Scots or our Scott here in the studio, is defeated by Patriot Army at the Battle of Moores Creek Bridge. This setback was largely quite loyalist largely quiet loyalist activity in the Carolinas for 3 years. Okay. South Carolina repelled British attack to take Charleston. That was June 1776. Then in July 1776, America finally declares independence. Now not that they'd missed, but they didn't go over the documents. Dennis, I want to go over a few of the documents and some of the dates with you. What do you got?
Well, I was just going to say, some things they left out here.
Huge things they left out.
Well, yeah, like 1761, with James Otis Jr. fighting against the British self-written search warrants, the writs of assistance. That was a giant thing, and he went to court over that. And people that heard his oratory were very inspired by it. And of course, the court was a government, court of the crown, so they lost that fight. However, having lost that battle, it really was a critical thing in lighting, the brush fires of liberty, as people saw that, and that got people riled up. So that was important. Also with the Stamp Act, and I don't know if it refers to that, but with the Stamp Act,
it did.
It mentions the Stamp Act, but I don't.
But it doesn't go into any detail. This is each one of these does have a link underneath it to get more explanation.
So in this, with the Stamp Act, as the 10th Amendment pointed out, basically the American colonists nullified the Stamp Act.
Yes.
And eventually, because of non-cooperation and more active forms of resistance and interposition with the authorities of the crown that were trying to force this on them, they were able to get it rescinded, and so that was the end of that. But then that led to, I think it was the coercive acts, and then the declaratory acts, and so the biggest thing that really I think was getting everybody's attention. Well, there were two aspects. Yeah, the gun control was obviously huge, but also the idea that the government in London claimed the right to be the final decider in all cases whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the British Americans said no to that.
Right.
And it went on, and there were all these different examples of where they had clashes over it, and things were being said and discussed. And then on July 6th, so tomorrow, will be the anniversary of the declaration of the causes and necessity of causes for and necessity of taking up arms, which they wrote about, which was a very fiery thing, and that was apparently sent to England. I just read about it.
Explain that one. Explain that. So we have actually the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 2nd. It is largely
Well, excuse me. The signing. I checked the two.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The signing didn't happen
until
actually,
August. It was like August 2nd or August 12th.
but there was a rotation. Not everybody could be there at one moment.
Right.
We have a couple different pictures of the signing of the Declaration of Independence as if everybody was there in the room in Philadelphia all at one time, and that never happened.
Right. So apparently the July 2nd, the really key thing was the Lee Resolution.
Okay.
And again, this is not about the birth of a government or the birth of a nation. It's about the 13 states withdrawing consent, basically, or saying, we no longer recognize your authority to the British Empire.
Yes.
On July 3rd, evidently, there was a lot of wrangling over some strongly worded anti-slavery parts of the Declaration that Jefferson was very much in favor of.
Right.
But older voices, including I think Franklin, said, this is not going to work if we have to modify it or take this stuff out.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing how much Jefferson is currently being vilified retroactively, that he, slept with Mary, was it Mary? Yeah.
The whole
when
thing.
he was one of the largest proponents of getting rid of slavery immediately.
Yeah, he was definitely for that. And but people often forget, and one of our great historians and professors, Dr. Kevin Gutzman at Central Connecticut State University.
Yeah.
And by the way, you'll be very hard pressed to find any instructor or professor who knows this stuff more than he does.
Right.
He's at Central Connecticut State University.
Mm-hmm.
He's not at Yale or Harvard or Michigan or Chicago or Stanford or these other places. And he's one of the many ones that pointed out, if you come at this thing from the honest viewpoint, it's very difficult because there are the gatekeepers. And he was educated at the University of Texas and the University of Virginia, and he's a brilliant man. But anyway, there was a point I was
Think of your point for a second. I want to point out this. So you said the Lee Resolution. The Lee Resolution introduced by Richard Henry Lee of Virginia in the Second Continental Congress. Most people don't realize how much the Continental Congresses were coming together and how much self-governing there already was. But Second Continental Congress, June 7th, 1776, proposing that the American colonies declare independence from Britain. It contained three parts: a Declaration of Independence, a call to form foreign alliances, which Franklin was at the forefront of that, going to France, as well as I think Adams was involved in some of those aspects, and a plan for a confederation of states.
Right. So a call for a confederation. As I say, then the articles were not finally approved until later. In fact, apparently it wasn't until 1781. But there was Continental Congress. This was the Second Continental Congress that we're dealing with here. But the really maybe the two biggest key takeaways I believe from this again is he says we're not talking about one nation. We're talking about 13 free and independent states, and they're working together in Congress, literally and figuratively. Yeah. Because as Franklin said, if we don't hang together, we're going to all hang separately.
Right.
So they were working together on this sort of thing.
And that's part of that aspect is what George was pointing. It's like the balkanization, where you have all of these small. We saw it after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and that aspect where you had all of these smaller nation states.
Even the break of Yugoslavia. Created
Czechoslovakia and Hungary.
The situation was even worse after Yugoslavia was broken down. And here I am traveling, going from in illegal way from Albania, passing the border, and I'm traveling through Kosovo, Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia, and Croatia to Slovenia. Right. That war was done in Croatia, and you can see it was catastrophic.
Catastrophic, yeah.
Yeah. But in the same time, you feel it when I was in Bosnia, and I was in the capital of Bosnia, that is Sarajevo. Beautiful, beautiful place. If you remember, a long time ago was Sarajevo Olympic Games, Winter Olympic Games. Beautiful place. Yeah. Over there, the situation was like people used to go and lock the doors early. You don't see people out
Right.
at night. And
Right.
I feel
We're
that
living in terror.
3 weeks later, after I passed the border and I was in Austria, then the war in Sarajevo started.
Oh, wow. So that goes back to your point, Dennis, about the 13 independent colonies, is that not based on an ethno situation, but on they just had their own colonies. They'd formed their borders and they'd come together. We're proud Virginians, or we're proud, Massachusetts, or whatever their thing was. And so they took it strongly that this was not about creating a new nation. This was about gaining independence for independent colonies, and then having a superseding protectorate, but not somebody dictating over them.
Right. Well, I guess the way I look at it is, and it is interesting, an ethno situation. Well, they tended to be Anglo-Saxon, I guess either mostly English or the Scottish,
Yeah.
and some Scotch-Irish, and some Dutch.
Right.
Right.
But they didn't. But it wasn't like, okay, yeah, you could find a bunch of German
And some
in
Germans, too.
Pennsylvania and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
You could find some Irish throughout, Massachusetts, but you didn't have this enclave of just that ethnicity that formed their own colony.
Right. Universal, the rights granted by the Creator, so they
Yes.
applied to everybody.
Yes.
And then, but each of the 13 colonies are now independent states.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way, if you look at it, they didn't give up their ideas of sovereignty to
Absolutely not.
to a centralized authority. They were definitely opposed to that. But they said, let's all work together on this. And they did not establish a new governing system for all 13 of them to work together. And apparently was never really fully approved until 1781. So that's why this is so significant. When people say, well, today's a birthday, it's not. But what they were doing was exercising their natural right to leave a group.
Yeah.
For a polity to leave. And so 13 of them did it, not all on the same day, as we talked about.
If anything, it would be, we could say, the recognition of the day that the assumed day of the anniversary of of when the Declaration of Independence was proclaimed. But even that, there's Jefferson thought it was going to be July
Adams,
2nd.
yeah. But that's
Adams,
fine.
yeah.
If we say July 4th, I don't think that.
Yeah.
But the key thing is July 2nd has the Lee Resolution, so that has to be remembered. And then the other key thing is what they were doing, and it was originally just a political document, not a legal document. Though Judge Napolitano says it became item number 1 in the United States Code, which makes it currently a legal document.
Okay.
And it affirms the right and the duty to alter or abolish government, right?
That's an interesting take on it.
Right, so they're altering and abolishing their government. So whoever stops a polity or a group of people from altering or abolishing their government is acting against the first item in the United States Code.
Wow.
Along with, we say, even if it wasn't that, natural rights granted by the Creator, but that's even put in the legal structure. And the Constitution never said that you couldn't secede. Now, the Constitution does have, calling out militia to put down insurrections, and some people say, well, that seems very different than what the Declaration of Independence is talking about. So there, and so, I know it's a whole nother topic. They often people confuse the two,
right?
But there were some people that thought, well, really, we just want to have the British system here, but run by us here in America. And then there were other Americans that, no, we don't want that. And so that was a huge part of the fight that was going on afterwards.
Yeah. So it's very interesting that people, they think that we, just this, all of a sudden we've had enough and we just declared independence. There was full out war going on leading up to the Declaration, whatever the date may be. But there were already open hostilities. There were already several documents that multiple founding fathers had introduced or levied. We had an independent Continental Congress, or as independence as far as they were acting with their own autonomy. I looked it up a little bit to see. They say that just during the Revolutionary War, communication was often slow and labor intensive, with newspapers typically publishing weekly or bi-weekly, taking up to 24 hours to typeset a 4-page issue. Additionally, letters were the primary means of personal communication, often taking weeks to reach their designation. So then you look at it from that aspect and go, how long did it take, whether we've adopted July 4th, right? But that speaks to it again. There's this whole goofy thing of goofy, I'll call it that way, of celebrating Juneteenth, right? All that was the day that Texas finally got the announcement that the Civil War was over, or that secession, the how do you say it?
Emancipation Proclamation?
No. Yeah, it was the Emancipation Proclamation, but that was at the culmination or the finalization of it. So either way, they're celebrating the day that news finally arrived. And I look at this. How long did it take for we declared independence July, technically 2nd, through the whatever, and how many were signing? And Dennis, you're even pointing out could have been into September, right? Is that what you were saying about?
August. I think
August.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with a month or so, but then how long did it take for that information to be sent to Great Britain? By secure parcel on a boat, sent back over there.
I think it was like a month or two.
I thought it was a good month on a boat that your correspondents were, and so I wanted to look that up because communications were. Somebody could declare. I mean, we know of the guy down there in one of the little Japanese islands, right?
Oh yeah, there are a couple of them that did that.
Dude, they found him like 60 years later. He's 75, 80 years old, and he's still there, ready to fight. His clothes are shredded because he never got the news. He got stranded on the side. He didn't know, and he's still there on the island waiting to fight. For
empire.
For the empire. It's like
they reached out to a lot of those folks before, but they believed it was like a propaganda trick because they were indoctrinated, as we were talking about earlier.
But that's what I'm saying about the correspondence and the communications throughout the colonies. This wasn't. Don't we do this? It really bothers me a lot of times. We take so many things historically, and we put them in these retrospective boxes, acting as if, when we look at the Revolutionary War, Teddy, you pointed out the long rifle, the Tennessee or Kentucky long rifle.
Mm-hmm.
And George is pointing out the muskets. It's like we retrospectively, we want to frame things in our perspective. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have telecommunications. They had no phone lines. They didn't have the telegraph. They had no railways. They had nothing.
But there were ways how they communicate.
Well, yeah, that's where we think
I can tell you, I'm talking about Albania in the time of Ottoman Empire. There was a castle in this southern part, and they see they are coming. Here they start a fire. This castle here, see the fire. They start the fire here, and go like this, and information go all the way up to Hungary that Turkish army is coming.
Well, that was the Native Americans with the
smoke.
Yeah, the signal smokes. Yeah. So we get that, but we oftentimes it's like we act like, oh, the Declaration of Independence was signed 1776, and just Britain knew immediately that we're like, F off, we're done with you, we're not going to deal with your stuff, and that's not the reality. These communications were slow and laborious, and so they may not have gotten the communications, but the tyranny they were still doing in the colonies, trying to oppress the colonial people and get taxes. How long was that? How long did it take for the information to finally filter through? And then they win another battle. And then how long does that information take to get through? And how long? It's like the cutting off the lines of communications. That's a huge thing in a war, in a battlefield situation. Let alone you got to send your correspondence across an ocean during a time that an ocean voyage takes 3 to 4 weeks on a leaky little schooner, and you're going to send that across and hope it doesn't sink on the way over. And then you got to wait another 3 to 4 weeks for that information to come back to you on their response, or even longer, because they may take a couple weeks to formulate their response before they send it back to you. These are the type of situations we're dealing with that's why we again, a lot of people, if they actually look at it, I've seen people where they couch it in our modern understandings of communication or technology or things like that. Dude, this was muskets. You may have 4 rifles laying next to you, and a guy and one guy's shooting and another guy's reloading down there. This is not with my AR-15 and I can empty a magazine in a matter of seconds and just lay out 30 rounds across there. This is a guy getting up and shooting with a very inaccurate weapon. You had to be really good.
You had to be really good to be accurate, or be good and have luck at it.
Yeah.
And then you also, for the most part, you can unload a mag in like how long? A few seconds. Where if you had to be a veteran or really well drilled to reload that musket effectively,
Yes.
3 times, maybe 4 if you, fire, if you had it for, a good
Right.
decade or so.
Nobody knows what it means to keep your powder dry anymore.
Yep.
Nobody knows
Well,
what it means to that. There's a couple other phrases that do with musket and ball.
You had to load the powder.
Yeah.
You had the musket ball. You had
But you
had
had your-
all
you
these
had your-
different pockets. You had
you had your paper.
You had your paper.
Yep.
You had to dump that down the barrel. Then
Yeah,
you
what do
had
they call that?
bus-
The wed. What was it? What was it called, George? Your wad.
wad,
Wad,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
barrel.
yeah. You load your powder, then you load your wad, then you
Yeah.
load, then you stuff that down.
Then you ramrod it, and then
Yep.
you put powder on the barrel, and then make sure you don't, you can't. You have to hold it up,
Right.
or straight, because if you pour it down, you lose the powder and the musket ball.
Potentially, if your ball wasn't seated.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
It's
there was
amazing
always
though,
the
isn't it?
chance of misfires.
Later on, they got with the primer after that. You put the primer, and you don't have to.
Yeah. Put
Yeah.
an extra
You
extra
don't
drop
have
in.
extra.
And these are things that we don't think about, that these guys, they were fiercely independent, but at the same time also loyal. Well, there
I
are so many
can't
things.
get enough of that movie. I'm sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt
which one?
you. What is the movie with
The Patriot.
Mel Gibson?
The Patriot.
The Patriot. I can
love
watch
it. I
it
love
every
it.
day.
I love it, and it's a his character in there is a what do they call that? Combination of 3 different the swamp fox and
Francis-
2 other.
Okay.
Go ahead. Dan.
Francis Marion, yeah.
Yeah, the
Francis
swamp
Marion,
fox. Yeah, and then 2 other guys. So he's a composite. Mel Gibson's character, but composite. But many of the things that you saw in that movie are historically true, as far as burning down churches with people locked inside, burning down houses with people, just executing people on their property by the redcoats. These were true isms. That may be a Hollywood accounting of it, but these are truisms that those types of atrocities happened. And when you think about how these people dealt with those aspects, I always think of the one guy that he finds out his wife and kid have been killed, and he just just takes himself out. He can't take it, and he just takes himself out. And they're like, whoa, because that's and our founding fathers laid down their lives, and I'm thinking of. You got to reload these muskets. You've got to reload these cannons. You got to fight all the things that they're dealing with.
You have
and
to
I'm like,
stand in a line facing the
dude,
most powerful, disciplined army
yeah,
in the sweltering heat,
Yeah.
or in Valley Forge during the cold. You have not a lot of provisions, and you have
dude,
poor
their
ham.
feet most of them didn't have shoes.
Yep, and you had to walk an average 8 to 12 miles if you were on campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in the blistering heat, you're wearing all this wool too,
Yep.
and
Yeah, and that's why when we read the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights, most people have no clue what the revolutionaries went through to understand what when they were putting that together. I know because he dressed down Washington dressed down his troops many times, but he knew they were volunteers. He knew they were coming with their own weaponry. They were coming with their own stuff, and he's like, we're not going to require you to have this, and this. They just need to be well regulated. They just need to be. We need
They
discipline.
have tomahawks too.
Oh, dude, Washington was a beast. You know about that, Dennis? How much he was a beast with a tomahawk. He learned during the French and Indian, what they call it, the 7 Years' War. He learned from the
Native?
Cherokee, Chiricahua,
Mohawk probably.
Mohawk,
Choctaw?
Choctaw. That's what it
Choctaw.
was. I said 2 of the other C ones. Choctaw, dude, he learned how to be a beast. That's why Last of the Mohicans is another phenomenal movie depicting some of that.
What
But
is the name of the movie?
Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, I
Daniel
know that
Day-Lewis.
since I was in
Yeah,
fifth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in middle school in 5th grade. I had the book.
Oh,
that
yeah.
I,
Last of
was
the Mohicans.
translated.
Oh, yeah.
Was translated in Albanian. I
Really?
still have the book.
Really?
I know Last of the Mohicans since I was like
Translated into Albanian. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
a
Dennis,
lot of books made from Jake London were translated in Albanian.
I have a leather bound 3-book. It's 3 books in a leather bound set my grandfather gave me as a kid. Call of the Wild, and 2 other. The Call of the Wild, The other two names are escaping me. It's over there on the shelf. Dennis, what were you going to say about the Washington and
Well, I was going to offer this, ask this question for
Go ahead.
the three of you. Madison, I think he wrote this to Jefferson after they reconciled and were friends again before they died. But he wrote in a letter that he really thought the actual revolution was not the fighting, but the change in the minds and the attitudes and in the opinions and the principles and the attitudes of the American people.
Agreed.
Before the fighting took place.
Well, as we know, I think the Patriots and the actual revolutionaries were a small percentage of the people, and then you had the Loyalists, but I think proportionally, especially in the South, were a larger percentage of the population or Loyalists or Loyalist sympathies, and then you just had most people just didn't have one side or the other and wanted to live their lives and their farms or their property or something like that. So, but I think what Dennis is saying is that you had to overhaul this centuries, if not 1,000-year systems of monarchy and that kind of rule and replace with a new Enlightenment era idea of liberal republicanism.
Right.
And is that what you were trying to get at, Dennis?
Well, I'm just again, Adams' reflection, not Madison. I misspoke. Adams' reflections on this, subsequent to all that had taken place, where he said he really felt that the revolution was really what had happened in the minds and in the spirits of the people. Mm-hmm. That was the real revolution, and then the fighting was a result of that sort of thing.
Wow. Send it to me on Facebook so I can show it to people with that cover. He's showing
I
me
might try to find this book when I go.
He's showing me the Last of the Mohicans in the Albanian cover on there. I think, Dennis, from my research, that common sense was one of the most pivotal mind changes in the colonies. They many historians have said that common sense was the tipping point that changed the minds of most of them to say, you're right, we love our home country, we're British loyal citizens, or have been, we have been loyal, but this enough is enough. You can't do this to us and expect us to stay loyal. You can't abuse us. We've been over here. You didn't come over here and chop down all these trees and break up this ground and start a plant. As much as the founding fathers are vilified for having plantations, right? They go, oh, well, these guys all had plantations. They even had slaves. They go, well, first of all, that was part of the system, but more importantly, most of them, either themselves or their fathers who came before them, one or two generations, were the ones who developed those lands and established those plantations. Jefferson is the one that built Monticello. I mean, he's the one that he was the architect of that building. So you don't walk in there and act like he just took over somebody else's house or he didn't have a vested interest in this. And so a lot of these people, they're like, wait a minute. Common sense is really, this pamphlet is really helping me understand that my independence that I've had all along and my establishment of my right to self-governance that I've had all along is now being encroached upon by our home country, our fatherland, motherland, whatever you want to call it. And at a certain point I go, no, you have no stake or claim. I'm the one who built this. I'm the one who established this life that I have here with my family, with my property. I've negotiated or bought or conquered, whatever. I own this. You're not going to come in here and just surreptitiously slap a tax on me. That's why it was so abhorrent to them. That's why most young people today don't get it when we go, yeah, the income tax is theft. The property tax is theft. They don't get it because they were born into that system where it already existed. Whereas our founding fathers were not born into a system of the stamp tax or the tea tax. It was foisted upon them by a government 3,000 miles away that they're going, wait a minute, we've been doing just fine without you.
Yeah, and it's a shame too that a lot of people have that slave mentality where, well, the property tax is, it's been there, so I guess we got to pay it. Where if you actually think about it, common sense, you're like, wait a minute, so I own this property, but I still have to pay feudal rent to the government, or they will
confiscate
it.
Isabella County.
Yeah.
$2,200.
Yep.
Even in socialist countries in Europe, like let's say France, Germany, Britain,
They don't do
Spain.
property tax?
They don't do property
They don't do
tax.
property tax.
They don't do property tax. It's yours, stay yours.
Yeah.
Property taxes here is a way of cheating on people.
Yes, exactly right.
So something else I mentioned about this,
Go, Dennis.
if I may. So we're going back to this thing about the changes in the attitudes and the thinking
Yes.
and the philosophies of the people. And as Teddy pointed out, it was a small percentage that were really all fired up for this.
Yeah.
But it just took the small, tireless, irate minority to light those brush fires of liberty. I think Sam Adams said that, right?
Yeah.
He also said at one point, he talked about the among the rights to the colonists are, and then he went through a whole list of things.
Yeah.
Which, if I don't know if you can look this up, but it's considered a semi-famous thing. And of course, Thomas Paine and our friend Dave Benner has a classic about Paine, Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism. But Paine's common sense really was critically important and
huge.
And Washington made sure all the troops were aware of it, because it
didn't he make it require reading in Valley Forge?
I think he did, and so that was the why. So Paine was providing the why in booklet form or book form, but also getting back to the Declaration of the Causes and Necessity for Taking Up Arms.
Yeah.
Excuse me, 1775.
The Lee.
No, this is before. This is 1775. This is the Declaration of the Causes and Necessity for Taking Up Arms, July 6th of 1775.
Okay, I'm going to look that up while you're talking.
One of the things they said in there was that our attachment to no nation supersedes our devotion to liberty. I'm paraphrasing there slightly. And Patrick Henry later said something too, where he said, in the early days, liberty was the primary object, sir. So, so again, they weren't looking at saying, we're going to establish a nation state, and the nation state is, we're all going to pledge allegiance to the nation state. We're all going to, obey the nation state or promote the national greatness. No, it was the cause of liberty, and that was what really animated them. That was what drove them. That was their touchstone, their lodestar that they were.
Let me read it for the people out there. So the Declaration of Causes and Necessities of Taking Up Arms was adopted by the Second Continental Congress July 6, 1775, to explain the reasons for the American colonies' decision to take up arms against British rule. This is a year before the actual Declaration of Independence, and they're like, no, we're going to take up arms. It articulated grievances such as taxation without representation and military aggression, emphasizing the colonies' desire to self-governance and their right to defend their liberties. And I'm going to scroll down because I saw it in here. And this, again, this is an AI summary, but purpose and impact. The Declaration emphasized the colonies' desire for self-governance and their right to defend their liberties. It served to unify the colonies in their struggle against perceived British tyranny, fostering a shared commitment to their cause. The document laid the groundwork for future declarations, including the Declaration of Independence. By clearly articulating their grievances, the colonists rallied support for their defense against British aggression, marking a pivotal moment in leading up to the American Revolutionary War. That's amazing, Dennis. I think of it. Oops, microphone. I think of it on a very lower, less ideological, or even what would be the phrase? A very low slave mentality scale, but where people are coming against data centers or some of these other injustices. It's just about getting the information to people, and then they come out together. Our government is only as powerful as we allow them to be, but it takes a central galvanizing or catalytic idea to bring people together to oppose it. I've sat here with peoples of all persuasions discussing overdevelopment, wanting to put a 15-minute city south of 96 here, right? They were of all political persuasions. It didn't matter. They did not want this thing going in, so they were able to come together as one, no matter what their disparate political views may have been.
Are-
Same with the data
I
centers.
was about to
You have
say,
people-
aren't we seeing something like that now?
We are. Flock cameras. There's multiple things that people are coming together with that have nothing to do with political ideology, but they have to do with the people not wanting it. What do you got, George?
Do you know that driving in M59, you know where the place is that they sell mulch?
Yes.
Where the pine tree is, like,
Yeah. By St. John's?
yeah, in the opposite side of that.
Yeah.
It's a camera.
Okay.
It's a camera
Not a flock
with
camera?
what they call the.
Solar panel?
They get all the time the electric power from with the solar.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
solar
solar
panels.
panel.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are one in that way if you go towards. If you go towards west, it's one in that way, and if you go towards west, is another one in this way.
Uh-huh.
Who put those cameras? For what are those cameras?
What are they
over
there for?
Huh?
Because isn't that mulch like free or whatever?
No, it's not about the mulch.
Or
It's
not
the other,
mulch, not so
other
much free. You can
side,
dump
other,
mulch.
either side of the
Yeah.
road is a camera.
Yeah, so why do we need a camera there?
Why we need the camera over there? And the
Yeah.
reason how I know is because I have a radar detector,
Yeah.
and all the time that you drive by, it goes like beep 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 beep, and I pay attention a couple of times, and I say to my son, and he told me it's such a name for this camera that even they put right now.
Flock cameras.
Huh?
Flock.
Flock camera. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
so we think
Who,
about go.
who allowed them to put this?
They didn't.
Who gives
we
to them
allowed
the
it
right?
because they do it behind closed doors and they don't tell us about it. And then we only find it's the same way with these data centers. We
You-
find
there-
out later,
There's
and then we show up at the city and go, "What are we doing? How many of you
It's-
county officials have signed secret agreements?"
but the local counties will just contract these out to these because it's a private company that has the cameras and controls them.
Correct.
And you can go on and they're open source too. So you can go on the Flock website
Mhm.
and look up any license plate or any car or a live stream of that area,
Mm-hmm.
where you're driving through, and they'll tell you, it can give you a history of where that's been in recent times.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could look up,
Yeah, I understand, but I don't want that camera to.
but no one does. But
Nobody
they're
does.
just put in there like the data centers
Yeah.
under everybody's
Okay,
nose.
they
And then
put
they
it
go-
over there. Who gives
No,
to
then-
them the
then-
right to put over there?
They go, "We're
And
a
who
private
gives-
company. We can put a camera up here."
And how can we take down those cameras?
If you have a camera on your property, right?
Uh-huh.
On your camera, and then you make it available. Well, you've already signed a contract to make it available to law enforcement, but let's say you make it available to that's what they're doing on a corporate level.
Well, that's what they're doing. I mean, the local county government is doing that. They're
Yeah.
having this private. They're contracting this private company to put the cameras in.
Yeah.
As a get around to violating the Fourth Amendment.
Correct.
Okay, and who pays those?
Well, the private
Uh,
corporations are getting paid.
no.
Well, the county pays the
Whoever
corporation.
access
So basically,
Okay,
our tax
where
dollars.
does the money come from to the county?
Our tax dollars.
Exactly. Dennis, you're ruminating over there on something.
Yes, I found from that great Twitter X site and website this wonderful source, the 10th Amendment Center.
Okay.
Now, this was posted November 25th of 2025 last year. But anyway, loyalty to liberty. This is what it really means to be American.
Yes.
July 6, 1775, just over 2 months after Lexington and Concord,
Okay.
the Second Continental Congress passed the Declaration of the Causes and Necessity for Taking Up Arms, authored by John Dickinson, who was later known as the penman of the American Revolution, by John Dickinson and Thomas Jefferson. And here's the quote: "Our attachment to no nation upon earth should supplant our attachment to liberty."
Ooh.
How about that?
Read that again, Dennis. That's beautiful.
Our attachment to no nation upon earth should supplant our attachment to liberty. And
That's-
liberty is granted by God.
100%.
God first.
100%.
Liberty first.
What's this? He who the
What-
sun sets free is free indeed.
What God has joined together, each human being made naturally in God's image.
Yeah.
God is free. Therefore, we are naturally made free.
Correct.
What God has joined together, each human being and their God-given liberty,
Yes.
let no one tear asunder.
Yeah.
Or to put it as Dickinson and Jefferson, two great American heroes, said, our attachment to no nation upon earth should supplant our attachment to liberty.
It's beautiful because if you look at the history of mankind, recorded history, it is a constant struggle between operating in that God-given freedom, that God-given self-determination, that God-given autonomy, and other people trying to control it. That's why the Lord didn't want to give Israel a king. He's like, this is not a good thing. Be autonomous, be free, operate, and I echo back to Thomas Paine when he said if we could operate amongst ourselves as angels, government would be completely unnecessary. Completely. So let's institute the least amount of government to protect the greatest amount of liberties and freedoms, but have it be in control. And didn't Washington say that government is like fire? It is a dangerous servant and a fearful master, or
Right. And then Patrick Henry said government is evil. It's just a question of how much evil.
Yeah.
And then somebody said, well, wait a minute. Why are we, and G.K. Chesterton and others had said,
I love G.K. Chesterton. He's
so don't select evil.
Mhm.
And Robert Higgs says, so he takes, and Madison said the thing too, well, if men were angels, we wouldn't need
is that who said it?
government. Higgs says, because men aren't angels,
Yeah, we have to institute the least.
we can't afford to have government.
Oh, okay. So it was Paine that said we need the least amount to protect the greatest amount of liberties.
I think so, but Robert Higgs has an interesting way of. So he says, no, you're right that people are fallible, that men aren't angels, and therefore we can't give any men the monopoly power that they get through the state. The state, he says, is too dangerous to tolerate. And let's see if we can get a comment from Gypsy Magic about that.
Hey, let's see. Teddy, you keeping track of that?
Of chat or?
Yes.
Yes, I am. It's just Dennis and Gypsy
Yeah.
talk to each other in chat.
Right. But I'm waiting for Gypsy to
We do have a comment on the YouTube stream saying good discussion. So
thank you.
keep an eye out in case our good friend Gypsy does respond.
Yes.
Scott, are we? I think we're ready for some pie, buddy.
Oh yes.
Awesome. Everybody good for a slice of pie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Dennis was gracious and honored us with bringing us a big, huge apple pie, and there's nothing more honest or honorable on. Look at that, dude. He's already ready.
He is. He's prepared. He's like a Boy Scout.
Dude, there's nothing cooler than being on
Teddy, thank you.
the 4th of July weekend and having some apple pie on during a podcast discussing what it really means. Well, our historical review of the American Rifles. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Look at that.
Thanks, Scott.
Look at that.
Really appreciate it. Yep.
Dude, he cooks and he serves.
I was a big fan of the chocolate cake.
That
last time.
Dennis brought last time?
Dennis brought last time.
Oh yeah, that was good too. Well, they had a July 4th Independence Day version, but I didn't see it when I ran in there. I didn't want to.
Oh, you didn't want to turn back around?
Yeah, so I just
Have
I
ever
brought the apple
brought
pie.
you
Mm.
sourdough bread with apple?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, dude. His wife makes an apple cinnamon sourdough bread that is incredible.
Great. Whose wife?
George's wife, Anna.
Oh,
She is phenomenal. She sells bread every weekend at the.
She sells bread every Sunday at the house market.
we are.
Howell?
Mhm.
Howell Market.
Oh, where's that?
That's right across the street from.
Old courthouse.
Yeah, right across the street from the old movie theater,
Yes.
and it's right
Courthouse,
in
yeah.
that little open area right there at the courthouse.
Dude, Anna's.
In which town?
Howell.
Howell.
Oh, Howell. Okay. Oh, okay. I got you.
So he brought me a whole loaf of that sourdough with the apples and cinnamon.
Mhm.
And I ended up having 3 or 4 pieces left at the end, Gjergji. And I grabbed my chickens here, right? So I had my homegrown chickens, eggs, and I whipped those up, and I made some of the best French toast that I've ever had, dude. Sprinkled a little cinnamon into the egg, and then battered up both those, all 4 pieces of bread. Incredible.
You know what also was
You have
good?
to try that.
You know what?
with,
You know what also was
dill
really
and,
good? That
pickle.
Mm-hmm.
That one.
Yeah.
Dill and pickle.
Okay.
you know what else was really good that Gjergji made? His chili that he made for the chili cook-off.
Oh, hell yeah.
That was
Oh,
incredible.
that one.
That was
I
good.
can
was
make it
awesome.
again. Just let me know, guys, when you want to. How
Yeah.
I can make it.
Are you coming on the 19th?
Hmm?
I got to put the flyer up.
Okay.
19th.
I'm in 19th. Yep.
Yeah, the 19th.
Yeah.
Brand new party.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna make sure Scott's here. We're gonna
What
I
day
know
is
Joe
19?
and it's a Sunday, but we're gonna start at like 2 with
I'll be late because
no, it's fine. We're gonna start at 2 with the cooking because we want to do a bunch of different barbecue dishes. Some pulled pork.
and I'll come from
some
Hall
ribs.
with my wife after we
Yeah.
finish over there.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
the way we can stop here.
Yeah, this is excellent. What is it about? How did that come about, do you think?
Which one?
Apple pie being synonymous with
Oh,
America and independence and freedom.
I like cherry pie too. Cherry pie is delicious. But I don't know, Johnny Appleseed? What role
Right?
did he play?
Well, and most people don't realize Johnny Appleseed, that it was not about just making what we call apple cider today. It was actually a hard apple cider or a mead. Not mead's more wine or more honey based, but it was ciders were the first predominant alcoholic beverages in the colonies, long before the Germans came with the hops and the other beers. Ciders were the number one. So when he was doing, when Johnny Appleseed was going around, there was a three or four main things. One, apples in and of themselves are phenomenal. Apples are one of the awesome fruits that God created. Each apple contains all of the genomes for all apples ever. And it's only when you cultivate them properly that you isolate different. So if you're getting Honeycrisps, okay, that Honeycrisp, which is my favorite, so I'm bringing it up. The Honeycrisp
In the cereal?
came about, the Honeycrisp apple came about, okay, and somebody discovered it and they ate it and they said, okay, well, the only way to keep that strain of Honeycrisp is to cut off branches and stick them out of the next tree, or cut off the branch and grow roots out of that branch. You can't take that Honeycrisp and pull the seeds out of it and make a new Honeycrisp tree, because that apple contains all the genomes of all the apples, and you're going to get a variation. You're going to
You
get
don't know what you get out.
you're going to get something totally different. So in order to have the apples actually have maintain that whatever apple that they strain that they want, they have to what do they call that, grafting and cultivating those apples, because if you plant it from seed, you're going to get totally different apples. So apples are phenomenal in that way. But apple cider vinegar was phenomenal throughout the colony. It's been around for centuries as a medicinal and as well as a cooking and a whole bunch of other things. Apple cider vinegar is awesome. Of course, apple ciders. But these were mostly fermented ciders because they would keep for a very long time. And also the other things, you get apple sauce, is you get, apple butter, you get a number of other things from apples. So apples are a superfood.
Have you ever tried Calvados?
Explain that to me.
Calvados is alcohol that is distilled after the apples are getting fermented.
Mm-hmm.
You can find that in France or Germany.
Okay.
Have you ever read a book, Three Friends?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's from
You have to send me.
Eric and Maria Remarque. It's the time of before Nazis came in power in Germany.
Okay.
And Calvados is like they distill, they take the alcohol out,
Mm-hmm.
and they put a wooden barrel, like oak,
Okay.
and they turn it in cognac. But the name of this cognac,
Ooh, cognac,
is
yeah.
called Calvados.
Okay.
I know that I have a bottle at home
Dude, you got to bring it over.
that is about like 12 years old that I did the last time. But
Awesome. I want some. I was trying to look up the Thomas Paine quote so I got it right, but Dennis, you may be right. The other author. I know I've heard the quote though. So who it's ascribed to, you may be absolutely correct on that. I'm gonna look up history of apples right now. History of apples. That was great.
Yeah, it's good pie, no doubt.
And of course, the air's kicking up here now to cool us off a little bit, but it's blowing right in my face.
I'll see where they sell it. I'll buy you in a bottle.
You're awesome,
Jeremy.
George. You're awesome. So,
I send it to you.
Dennis, we've talked about quite a few things. The
I don't want to. I know that it's
Thank you.
not polite to interrupt because you just started to
Go ahead,
ask
George.
him for something.
Yeah.
And my question is, okay, we are talking about Revolutionary War.
Thank you, Scott.
The day
You're
that
awesome.
America got divorced from
Yeah, you're picking up on his terminology.
Anglo-Saxon Empire.
Yeah.
What is that they say? Yeah, it would be the founded fathers. They found that in the good way, but how United States become the corporate of United States after?
Well, it became a corporation.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting topic. Some people think, look, Gypsy's chiming in here. So, some people think that there's a misnomer here, that this grows out of what's known as the incorporation doctrine that some people are trying to talk about with the 14th Amendment. You know, and then there's this argument back and forth. Was the 14th Amendment incorporating the entire Bill of Rights to the states? And they say no, and actually the states had, and Professor Gutzman points this out, the states had their own constitutions, right?
Yes.
And we have, and so the whole way the way the system was set up is state law is operative unless it is in an area that is specifically delegated by the people of the states to the feds. And so the supremacy clause is not, whatever the feds say is
No.
the thing. It's the Constitution and laws made in pursuance thereof. And so people argue back and forth in this incorporation doctrine, but I don't know if we say is it a corporation? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure about that part. But there is the other issue of the qualified immunity, right? And so then you could say, well, a lot of times if you try to deal with the feds, or any other governmental unit, you do have that aspect where it's very difficult to get personal accountability from somebody who's doing the government's bidding, right?
Oh, that's huge. I say it all the time that when somebody takes somebody's property, they need to be held personally liable for not the government. You were the county clerk or whoever you were that took that person's property. You were proved in law that was the wrong thing to do. You need to be personally held accountable for that.
Of course.
But that's what he's talking about. The qualified immunity is that is you become a cog in the entity, and now you're not held liable. They're gonna settle with that citizen, we the people, that won against a county government, and it's going to be other money from the coffers of the taxpayers that's going to go to pay off the lawsuit that county clerk a-hole lost because he was wrong, right? But he's not held personally responsible. That should be an abomination. We had in the during the Revolutionary War, you had governors and county officials that were on the wrong side of issues, that were hauled off by the people and tarred and feathered and told, now, you're the one who made that decision.
And we saw a lot of that too, and it was very until after World War II, really. Dennis would know Battle of Athens.
Oh yeah, in Tennessee.
In Tennessee, where we still had blatant election rigging and corrupt county officials and political machines and all that. And in this case, Battle of Athens, the returning World War II veterans armed themselves and took over the courthouse and drove those people out of the county.
Right.
And
which is the way it should be.
And after that come another question. We pay taxes. Why are we paying taxes to a private company like IRS? IRS is not part of the government.
Well, the Federal Reserve, yes. And the IRS is the arm of that?
The IRS address is somewhere in those islands.
Yeah, so you're right. Why are we paying it? Because they've done the one thing that didn't work on the colonists because they didn't have that leverage. They have coerced people, right? How do they get the Patriot Act passed? Well,
scare everybody.
Scare everybody into, hey, we had 9/11. We got to pass this thing so we can have a good strategy to go after the terrorists. So all of these taxes, how do you get really the implementation of the IRS and the Federal Reserve Act. You get it in color of night, nobody's paying attention, and nobody paid attention until they were hit with it and actually having to pay, right? But where did that happen? During the Great Depression, which I believe that the stock market crash and the ensuing Great Depression was totally engineered to bring about a change in this country. Look at FDR's Grand New Deal. It was all socialist programs meant to up the coffers of the United States and gain more control over people, because if you come with your hand out and your pockets turned out and ask for a job from the government, they're going to give you a job with strings attached. And so it's a constant usurpation.
Taxes.
Through fear tactics and through trauma. I mean, we are a country and even a world that lives in a trauma-based mentality.
I think, well, as we were saying at the beginning of the show, when we were comparing what the originally colonists had to pay in 1770s, which was between 1 and 1.5% of their total income, compared to now.
And they threw a revolution over that.
But now we have, and I've been saying this, a lot of people are coerced or indoctrinated or just have a slave mentality.
Just born into it.
They're just born into it, where they don't really think for themselves, like, well, the property tax was here. I guess I got to pay it because it's always been here since I was born. Or
being here is not the right way, because it's being here. How do we know that it's being here and it's right?
But you don't question.
But a lot of people don't question it.
Yeah.
So the people
if you were born if you were born in chains, you don't question your chains. If you're born without chains and somebody shackles you, you question the chains.
The right is like you are born and whatever you see, you're supposed to accept everything. No, because during the time things change,
100%.
And in the way how they put the property taxes on us that we don't produce anything, we exchange our time for payment. So we were completely out of this equation, and they say, oh, we are going to put for a couple of years, and after this couple of years become couple of 10 years and 100 years, and now it's all the way to the end.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
That's a huge point. That's a huge point. And it's certainly true for things like the taxation and of course, in the cruelest tax of all, right? Monetary depreciation.
Inflation is
inflationary monetary and fiscal policies,
which is taxed by other means, right? Is that how it's phrased?
Well, but it's sort of semi-hidden until finally you say, "Oh, holy smokes! Look what's happened to the value of our currency."
Yep.
But it's also true with, as I think it was Snowden that said this, right? If we don't protect the privacy right now and make a big deal out of it, our children, they're not. I mean, look how it's changed now.
Yeah.
In terms of the lack of privacy.
Well, sorry to interrupt you, Dennis, but they're passing right now a Kids Act, which, it's like an Internet Patriot Act, where they're going to require digital ID for most things on the internet to protect the children. This is Republican and Democrat.
Teddy, I appreciate you talking about that. As long as we don't require ID for voting, that ID over there on the internet is fine for kids. It's sarcasm, Patrick. It's sarcasm.
But I wanted to point out. I wanted to point out what Gjergji was saying earlier about the cameras and him discovering the flock cameras and all that. Where he's like, what the fuck? Why are there cameras recording my car? Yeah, flock cameras.
What the flock?
Why is the government bypassing the Fourth Amendment through this private corporation?
Right.
To violate my Fourth Amendment and track me where I go in my car. But then you have people who are it's like, well, why do you hate the camera so much? You only hate the cameras if you have something to hide.
Because you have no fucking business to know where I go and what I do.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But that's it. Isn't that it's creating these corporations and having the corporations erode our liberties.
Same like IRS. Corporation.
It's a corporation
IRS.
to erode our liberties.
Corporatism. Now, I just, by the way, I found something at the IRS, because the IRS speaking. I just
do it. Yeah.
So I sent it to you. But basically, what they were saying is, oh no, we have full authority. Now, people said, well, there was never a law establishing the IRS. And so I said, well, that's one point. Does it mean it's a private corporation? I'm not sure. I don't know. I that's an interesting point. I'd never heard of that before, but that's something worth exploring. Now with the Fed, people say, well, the Fed is neither federal nor reserve, and you got all these private banks, right? That get together.
The ownership is private, right? The shareholders are private.
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
I think that's my understanding of it. Yeah.
And every time they print $1, they charge the government for that dollar with interest.
Yeah.
So
It's all
With the
it's
dollars that they print.
yeah.
yes,
I mean,
every dollar bill that the Federal Reserve prints, they charge the government with interest for making making that dollar bill.
and it is the biggest Ponzi scheme you've ever seen in the history of the world.
I know a lot of people like to go on the JFK conspiracy theories, but JFK made the national currency notes. You know, if you were probably around enough, the Red Seal notes.
Oh, yeah, right.
Those were made by the United States Treasury without any involvement with the Federal Reserve or any private central bank. And as soon as LBJ took power, those national treasury notes were discontinued. And
Yep.
that's my, if there was any conspiracy about who really got rid of JFK, I would think it would probably be the international banking cliques.
Oh yeah.
I would
Were
agree
those
with you,
people
but
that things are promised 3,000 years ago?
I would agree with you, but then I would expand it to say I think it was a huge combination. CIA wanted him gone. Israel lobbyists, because JFK was trying to get them to register.
And their nuclear program. He was upset about their nuclear
exactly.
program. Yeah.
And Federal Reserve and a whole bunch of the
American
American mafia, as well as Cubans, Cuban communists wanted one level of retribution. That's why they were
the
brought
most
in.
disastrous result, or the drastic, most disastrous thing of his assassination was we were on our way of getting rid of the Fed with the national current treasury notes he made.
Yep.
And then he gets taken out, and then LBJ gets rid of that immediately.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
and
LBJ was.
It's very odd that no president has ever tried that kind of monetary policy ever since.
Because the gun is behind the head.
Yep.
Yeah. So how did that audit of Fort Knox turn out?
I'm not very
well. Just like the Doge audits, where nothing really came from it.
Nothing happened. Yeah. No arrests. No arrests. Held accountable. Yeah, we're kind of disappointed with that.
In my opinion, President Trump, is not the Trump that was the first time.
Well, that's. I was saying this. I was saying this to Jeremy yesterday. A lot of the people are still on his side or support him. Think like he's somehow still 2015, 2016 Trump, where now he's just like, charismatic George W. Bush, that has a sense of is relatable to people, and
he has a way of expressing their emotional outlook on things. But if you look at it, you say, what more could the deep state have wanted than what they've been getting? I mean, it's just And then he starts to speak truth, like on Iran, and then pretty soon he goes back in the other direction again. And people say, well, maybe is it anything to do with like Fox News talking about the crypto scams by the family? Or I mean, there's
he made like $2 billion, profited $2 billion alone this year off of crypto. His Trump meme coin and his son's crypto adventures, and and the Trump. I mean, it's the Trump family, and Trump has just been absorbed into the establishment, the upper echelons, like like Bilderberg, Soros level. Because I mean, like Gjergji was saying, the Kushners wanted to take over this. Is it a nature preserve? I thought I saw somewhere like
it was. Don't they want the Kushners want to take over the whole Palestinian?
That too,
area.
but I'm talking about like for what's going on in Albania.
It was natural reserve in one side, and the island was Virgin Island because nobody used it.
Right.
Since the time of communist government, that was a strong point of control in Otranto.
Right. But they wanted to take over this this island where it's like the last nature refuge of a lot of these endangered species.
Yeah, correct.
And it's a beautiful natural area, and they want to build into a 10,000 they want to have a resort that can house 10,000. It's like for upper class millionaires and all that. That's what we're dealing with, and we have obviously the oil market manipulation, and we have the prediction market manipulation, and all of that's going on.
Do you know that Albania has decent reserves of oil? And do you know who is one of the investors in the market in Albania? Do you remember General Clark?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Together with I said, tell me the name of the billionaire I talked about.
Elon?
No.
Soros?
Soros. George Soros. Yeah.
Together with George Soros, they take care of oil business in Albania, and General Clark is one of the investors over there.
Amazing. The corruption is amazing. I don't know how we get back to, it wasn't the good old days, but get back to the heart sentiment, as you mentioned about the people waking up back in 1774, 75, and of course in 1776 with Thomas Paine, producing his Common Sense pamphlet. But I look at it going, there's going to have to come another change in the world, because the shackle, they just keep, it's a constant thing of people throw off the shackles, and then incrementally the governments of various places just come in and they, oh, is this okay? Just going to put a little shackle on it.
Well, it's just been like,
and we go, it doesn't feel too bad.
Since the Civil War, it's just been over time, government gets bigger, and then the limitations on freedom of the people
keep getting eroded away.
So,
Dennis, I want you to start this one. The current betrayal of all that our founding fathers fought to establish. What would be on the top, maybe one or two, or even three or four on your list of things that that our country's, our government has betrayed, not just in the spirit, but the letter of what our founding fathers established here on this continent? Liberty and freedom.
Well, to start with, centralization.
Yes.
All right, and the attacks on the purviews of the states' responsibilities and duties to protect their people, their residents, from encroachment and from tyrannical usurpation.
Yes.
So, and there's been lots of that. The violations of the oath of office are rampant in that regard. And so among those most notable would be unitary executive decisions on matters of war.
Mm-hmm.
would be huge.
Yeah.
Destruction of the currency, of the money that people save in, that they work for, that they save in.
Right. All right. Complete violation of the Constitution, which was only supposed to coin money, gold and silver.
Gold and silver. Right. And then all the attacks on the privacy and the freedom of speech now. And,
yes.
And I mean, 99% of what they do, and I may be understating it there, is unconstitutional, is not constitutionally authorized, and are attacks on liberty. So the system we have today, as people say, and I know you were asking for, so those are some specific areas.
Yes, absolutely.
That I would mention that we have today. The long train of abuses today is worse than it was when Jefferson
exponentially worse,
and the other members of the committee wrote that. In fact, there's a book by a fellow named Harvey Silverglate, and this book's been out for a while, but I think the title is 3 Felonies a Day. And so what they said was
3 felonies a day.
If you get on your computer, chances are you commit without knowing it.
3 felonies.
Yeah, and if they want to come after you, they can do that. And now we're even losing the presumption of innocence.
Yes.
In so many areas. And so you see, for instance, all these boats being blown up in the Caribbean and occasionally in the Pacific.
Yeah. And
they say, oh, well, those are narco terrorists or drug runners.
I've seen that. You've seen footage of the last year of that. But can't they intercept the boats?
Sure, of course, yeah.
Why don't they intercept the boats and then say, look, these actually have drugs on it, instead of you blowing them all up? That's
his point.
But that's always just been bothering me, though. You have all these boats that you're blowing up. You know where these boats are, but why can't you intercept them?
And so they're killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Without any trial. They've already put into law through the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012 that if the president declares that you're a terrorist, you can be disappeared, right? So
Obama liked that. I got 2 words for you.
Is that why we're seeing recently anti-data center people being pushed as pro-Chinese, or some folks in the Fox News sphere are saying they're terrorists?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all sorts of these things now where we're so they're closing in on us from every direction, in terms of the finances, in terms of the privacy or lack of privacy, and the spying.
Yeah.
And again, corporatism, actual fascism, corporate and state interests working together. And so you look at things they even say, like with the smart TVs and the smartphones, and
oh, these TVs are spying.
Yeah,
listening to us every now. And I signed the agreement.
And so what Lenin said was, you show me the man and I'll show you the crime. And they can change. So and then of course the gun rights violations.
Yep.
And according to the 10th Amendment Center, and they were quoting the statistics on this, the most gun rights violations in the history of the country were in the first Trump administration. We'll see how the next one works out. I'm sure Biden, obviously, he was awful on this sort of thing too.
Right.
But time after time this happens, and think about the number of times that somebody appeals to the people on the basis of they're going to be either a populist or a conservative or a libertarian or a Tea Partier, and fight
and then
back,
they get in,
and then they go in the other direction.
Yeah.
This happens all the time, and frankly, at this point, what would the American Revolutionary Patriots be doing at this time? They'd be
they'd be tar and feathering people and running them out
well,
on a rail.
active methods of resistance.
Yeah.
So then you say, what do we do now? I mean, hopefully nobody is looking for there to be like violent revolution, because that would be hell on earth.
Yeah.
And it would be terrible.
But then you got to do the JFK quote: "Those who make peaceful transition or peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable."
So
I'm with you. I don't want violent revolution, but these people are coming to confiscate guns.
Right, and they're confiscating everything.
Everything, taking people's houses.
Yeah, right. So it's that's right. Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about civil asset forfeiture. I'm sorry. We go on and on.
We discussed it a little bit or actually quite a bit on Tuesday, and I got quite worked up and got pissed off about it because, the number of people go, why didn't they just pay the $2,200 that they, because they had been filing for years an exemption. And it was honored for years, and then the 1 year that's not honored, they start fighting. And the minute they pay it, they admit responsibility. So they're going to keep fighting and not paying it. They seize their house, they auction it off. This is the same county that would come in there and tell you your house is now worth $300,000 when you paid $90,000 for it 20 years ago, but now it's worth $300,000. We're going to tax you according to that. Are the ones that tell me they can't auction the house off for fair market value because it would be too much of a hassle for the government to do that? Wait a minute. You're going to come in and arbitrarily assess what my tax assessment is, but you can't get fair market value and then pay me the difference, let alone as a $2,200 debt on a $194,000 house. It's ridiculous.
Was this Oakland County or Livingston County?
Isabella.
Isabella County. Okay.
This is the one where the
Phelan?
the Supreme. No,
it was a Supreme Court ruling.
The Supreme Court just ruled it out last week, or a week and a half ago, and they actually just ruled to kick it back down to the Sixth Circuit. So the family is seeking compensation because they sold it at auction for $76,000 on a $2,200 tax debt, and they had to fight in court to get the county to give them the difference, because that's, you pay the tax debt, the homeowners get the difference. They lost the home, of course, and now they're fighting it's gone all the way up to the Supreme Court now, going, the fair market value of the house. Case in point, they sold the house at auction for $76,000. The guy who got it immediately flipped it for $194,000, and the people didn't get just compensation. And we read that statute, just compensation. No person shall be deprived of property without just compensation. Well, what's just compensation? Is it what you can get in an auction in a little half-assed effort? Or is it what the market value is? It's market value. If it had anything to do with eminent domain, it would be market value.
Excuse me. So have they worked with the Institute for Justice?
I'm not
sure.
Or
the Pacific Legal Foundation?
I think it was the Pacific Legal Foundation.
Okay, they're pretty good.
Yeah, so they're going to keep working it.
But I think the main problem with our country now is that it's a managerial bureaucracy state.
Mm-hmm.
And the more bureaucracy there is in a civilization, the quicker its decline and corruption and backstabbing and just general
100%.
wickedness occurs.
Well, we don't think about it from this. I don't always bring it up on the show because then it's a huge rabbit hole that we're going down. But we discussed another SCOTUS decision of telling the states you have every right to allow or not allow transgenders in sports. Okay, they kicked it back down to the states, right? Okay, fine. Larry and I went back and forth a little bit because he was trying to argue, well, that's the right thing to do. And I go, okay, but you have the federal government of Department of Education once you have the Department of Education at the federal level, then telling the states, oh, you guys can go ahead and do whatever you want about making decisions in the schools, but we do have the federal education, department that will control you no matter what you do down there and dictate it. So I was going back and forth. But here's the thing. We're arguing those points, those fine points on the decision SCOTUS made, on the Department of Education, on kids and gender. Nobody stops to think, why do we have an organized governmental run school system in the first place? Why do we have a governmental organized school system in the first place that doesn't teach our kids, that produces a bunch of indoctrinated little retards,
idiots,
who play in their mom's basement, play video game, that's their fun. I go, we're not even getting to the core of these real issues that are going on. And that's what we're talking about today is how far have we betrayed our founding fathers and what they established? We didn't even think about it. We're born into the shackles and we just go along with it because nobody thought, wait a minute. If you were born and you had a piece of property and you established it and you never paid any taxes on it and you never did anything, and then you go into town and you go to buy some supplies for your property and they tell you, oh, here's your price for this. And then there's a couple pennies extra for the government here, the county government here, because they maintain the roads. You would go, okay, well, I'm already paid for my supplies for my property. But when that same county assessor comes and walks on your property that you've been maintaining for years with all autonomy and everything like that, comes in and says, we're going to put a road out in front of your place and we're going to start taxing you so that we can afford to do it. You'd go, get off my property. Get off my property. But we were born into income taxes and property taxes and taxes. There are taxes on your cell phone that you don't even have a clue about. There are taxes on your electrical bill, which is a monopoly in itself. And you can't, you're going to change your electric company? No. You're going to change your gas company? Well, they passed laws, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, where you would have choice in now your gas company. All that did was jack up rates. I didn't change my gas company 25 years ago or whenever that came through, and my rates doubled overnight, and I never changed companies because
electric power is less expensive than delivery option.
Yes.
You pay for delivery.
Yes.
And you pay more for delivery than electric power.
So because we were born into these systems, the vast majority of us, 1913 when they passed, the Federal Reserve Act, and it's incremental, right? That's a communist plank of slow incremental increase of government, right? The bureaucracy. So we don't push back because it doesn't encumber us enough to where we get pissed off the way we should, and we just let it happen because, well, they've always done income tax since I've been alive. They've always done property tax since I've been alive. And you can't get your neighbors. They're like, "What? I just pay my property tax." Yeah, they the county does some nice things on the roads, and they take care of this and take care of that. You know what? If we took all that same money that we're paying in property tax, we could do 10 times what any local, state, or federal government is doing with that money and have so much better infrastructure. We need to go to Libya, the Gaddafi Libya model, right? He took and nationalized their oil reserves. You can call him a dictator, you can call him all this other stuff, but you know what? Look at the proof of what he did historically.
For his people.
He nationalized the oil reserves that they were selling out of Libya. Okay, they had the best colleges, they had the best roads, the best infrastructures. If you said you declared to the state that you were going to get married, they gave you a year off paid. Go enjoy your wife. Go enjoy and establish your family because we want families. You want to go to college? We're going to pay for your college. It's going to be the highest college. And then when he wanted to trade his gold or his oil in gold, that's when they got rid of him.
Then
we could do the same. Yeah, Hillary. Yeah, we saw, he died. We could do the same thing here in this country. Wipe out huge swaths of the bureaucracy, nationalize our resources, still let private companies that operate them, but the profits are going to come to the people of the land. If you own the land, you're going to get the lion's share of that, and they do it in Alaska pretty well. Where if you live there, the more years you live there, the more
you get a check for the oil,
the more dividends you get. Well, those are some things that we could benefit from, and then leave me alone on these other things, completely alone.
I'm going to quote Gypsy Magic,
Yeah.
who offered these things. Centralization is also required by a private central banking cartel to maintain its power and control. This is another factor in the path our federal government has taken in the past 100 plus years. And then he says, the fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The slow incremental encroachment.
Right. But so I would probably.
You're on. You're just your ears might be cutting off.
I would So I wouldn't.
I know some of those. It's some of this gets into social. It's like if you
I was going to say that's
things.
what you're saying is like Gaddafi was a socialist. Let's just say he was an Arab socialist.
Right.
But
I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm saying he was better. Perfect.
But that's the main dynamic that is popular. That would be popular if you have economically left policies like that.
Yeah.
And then you have socially conservative values with that. Then you would have a balanced, somewhat of a balanced, just society and state once what you're saying, what Gaddafi did was implemented.
Well, I mean, break it down. Don't make it federal. Make it state. Make it county.
Yep.
Right? Okay. This county has 5 oil wells on there, and they're going to pay X landowner his fee to come and lease that property, and then the oil things fund the county. You could fund the entire county with all sorts of resources, and then do other stuff. Right? Have a county fair, and there's a ticket price for the county fair, and that helps fund.
You could even do like
you could do
like
so many things
you could even
better.
do like a county sales tax or something like that. State sales tax.
If you wipe out all the other stuff, people would be would gladly pay for county services. Listen,
I was saying this last episode too, where the one thing that I think Perry Johnson will be attacked on if he is the nominee is like, oh, he wants to make a new sales tax or something like that, or would cause a new sales tax, because you can't cut income tax and property tax and still have. I mean, you can audit the state, but there's going to be too much sacred cow programs.
That's why we need to wipe all that shit out.
Yeah, but there's too many problem with that is 100%. That there's too many sacred cow programs and stuff. No, think about schools, think about this, think about that, where you have to balance it out and like do what he wants to.
As far as the schools, you've got all these subdivisions, right? In the more concentrated areas. Hold on.
Bless you. Bless you.
There's always 2. Wait. Ooh, Yoda failed me. There's not always 2. Where you've got subdivisions or you've got rural communities, go back to one-room schoolhouses.
I think we'd have to get rid of the that'd be a whole rehaul of it. Well, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you want that, we'd have to get rid of like the whole concept and the whole system of suburban,
But you could maintain a civic a county or civic connection for sports, for music, for drama, for all the programs that are really good in schools, but you whittle it down. Okay, you've got a subdivision and there's 200 houses in there. Well, we're going to use the community center in our subdivision, and now it's a one-room schoolhouse, and we've got 1 central or 2 central teachers that come in, and we pay for that one teacher to teach all the kids K through 12, and then we have other parents in the community that volunteer and come in and teach once a week for a couple hours, and do stuff. And more of that schooling is a couple hours in the morning, and then they're out gardening, they're out doing other stuff, they're out connecting with the community. You go back to something like that, you would revolutionize this country, because kids would actually be educated and informed and not just simply indoctrinated, and when the bell rings they march just like they're in prison,
like Pink Floyd The Wall.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the problem is that our school system is based on the Prussian model.
Yes.
That was meant to turn Poles into Prussians.
Yes.
But it was more a militaristic kind of thing, that more you do basic stuff and you join the army right afterwards. That was that militaristic kind of like industrial, assembly line kind of education.
Correct.
I'll just say, I think you're absolutely right, but I'll just say, whether it's this or anything else, I wouldn't want it socialized or centralized or governmentalized. I think private property and the right to private property is the key to liberty.
100%.
Because if you don't have that, then
Yeah.
right. So
Right.
So
yeah, and I would say that 95% of people that come out of the schools now aren't going to be indoctrinated retards. As you were saying earlier. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I think I think the problem is that I think the school systems we have the problem with the school systems is that
DEI.
The washing machine that brainwashed the
it-
kids.
it's just like what I said before. It's too like assembly line. It's like not enough care, right? The
Correct.
system. It's the system behind the scenes that don't really give kids a chance because you have to learn these Common Core stuff. And they don't really go deep into it.
They don't
You know,
teach you phonics.
Yeah,
How to
they don't
sound
teach
out a word.
phonics. They don't teach cursives. They're everybody now gets a laptop. You have to do your stuff on laptop, and you can't do handwriting or anything like that. So they're just what that is. That's just like fine tuning the machine for it to be more, go faster, go faster, go faster.
Right, right. So again, that's another betrayal. I mean, we're following, as Gypsy Magic pointed out, the fifth plank. We're following all 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto right now. In these United States, which we don't even call them these United States anymore. But then let's touch base a little bit on the Articles of Confederation. So we had the Confederacy is what most people think of. They think of the Civil War and the Confederacy and those southern states breaking away. But long before that, our founding fathers, their first form of any type of cohesive central government was the Articles of Confederation, which was just not loose, but it was
was loose. Yeah.
It was a loose agreement of we're 13 independent colonies and we're going to come together on a few of these central issues that would affect all of us. But other than that, we maintain our independency. Elaborate on that.
Well, and I think and that was the way they tried to sell the Constitution. Was going to be that, but the Articles of Confederation basically said that they had a requisition system, so the states would figure out how much they were going to send.
Oh, right.
Right. So their
apportionment.
So it was a confederacy, it was a confederated system rather than a federal system, and the idea was that it would be very loose and have defense, maybe a couple other things, but they were extremely limited, and they did not have direct taxation by the Confederation. The Confederation was financed by the people of the states,
right?
And of course, what ended up happening was the whole thing got turned upside down.
Yeah.
Now they also had a problem during the Confederation. I think some of the states were issuing their own paper currencies, which is why in the Constitution it said only coining silver and gold, right? Because they had paper money problems with the Confederation.
You had until even the 1850s. It could be states, it could be community, it could be towns, it could be counties, it could even be like just banks out of like a shop or something like that would have issued their own local currencies.
Right.
So the cryptocurrencies of the 19th century.
I mean,
yes.
If you put it like that, but I think they were still backed by some way by the actual American dollar and silver and gold,
which was
where the cryptocurrencies is as we see now with the Trump administration, you have a lot of meme coins, you have a lot of pump and dumps, you have people getting pardoned. But the thing about crypto, I always say is, how are you going to use the crypto when the power goes out?
Exactly, and we only the problem with all currency, using the shipping term, because we go to the bank to get our currency. It's all nautical terms. We're under maritime law in that aspect of the banking, but all of that is predicated on not. Here's the interesting thing about monetary ideas. It's not actually predicated on the backing of it. Yes, we want silver and gold currency. We want it backed by something tangible. But when everything falls apart, the silver and gold I may have in my pocket means nothing, but I may have some gasoline. I may have some vegetables. I may have some other things that are commodities that I don't even need to exchange with that currency. I can just go, I've got a gallon of gas. I need a couple bushels of vegetables to feed my family. That's the plus and the
the
negative.
Sorry to interrupt, but you had the fall of Rome.
Yes.
And I'm not pushing back. I'm just giving an example where you had the fall of Rome, you had the barbarian kingdoms and all this other stuff. You still had Roman currency being used throughout the former empire because what were its contents?
Yes, but that's what I'm saying is it's the intrinsic value of it. If I feel that I can take your Roman coinage and I can then parlay it to somebody else once I've sold you a good, then it's advantageous to me. But if the whole monetary system breaks down, It doesn't matter how much gold or silver I have in my pocket. It matters what resources in total I have, which may be gold and silver. But if I have a safe full of guns and George has a safe full of ammunition, then we're going to be partners. In this. Yeah, we're going to be partners. So that's all I'm saying is that I'm not denigrating the coins, the gold and silver coins. I'm saying that in a crisis, my eggs are going to be worth more than that gold and silver.
Okay. Yeah.
And somebody may say, I'm going to trade you my gold and silver for your eggs. And I'm going to go, eggs don't work for me today. What else do you have? Do you have a couple gallons of gas? Do you have this resource? Do you have that resource? Because those are the intrinsic values. And a reason I'm saying all that is because it comes back to what Dennis was saying, is that private property is the number one priority, should be the number one priority of every one of us as human beings. And also it is the greatest assault that they keep going after to take away and erode private property. Because if I have private property, then I can store some gasoline on my property. I can store, or I can run my own garden, right? How many of these inner cities are under attack that they're going after people for having a little garden in their backyard or their front yard, right? What is that all about? They don't want them to be self-sufficient. They don't want them to have a bartering tool in a crisis. They want them to be totally subservient and dependent upon the state or the county or the government to do that. And that's what I'm saying is, yes, backed by gold and silver, 100% in a functioning economy. When the economy breaks down, we're going to be bartering. I'm going to be standing on my porch with a shotgun going, are you coming? Are you friend or foe? What are you here to trade with? You know?
But let me just point out, yes, the barter, but I think historically speaking, we can see, and I don't know, if hopefully this doesn't come to this, but if it came to that kind of a situation, the idea of money is that you can carry value.
Correct.
Right. And then exchange it.
Yes.
Right. So it would still seem, I mean, historically, that's always been the case, that if people had something that high trust asset.
Yeah,
right,
I'm not denigrate that. I'm just trying to balance it.
Right. But I'm just saying, some people say, well, maybe I don't have something. Some people say, I don't have something to trade other than, but I got gold or silver. And and if you were to say, well, I don't want that, but chances are there'd be somebody else that would have the same kind of goods that would say, yeah, great, because that's why the money was developed, right?
Well, that's why the barter system in the ancient times was phased out, and you always had, since civilization,
well, it was creating a standardization.
You had a medium of exchange. That was just my point. Where I get what you're saying with the barter of the resources, but there was always a point when we had there was always, even during the Bronze Age collapse, that was basically apocalypse, civilization collapse. You still had, for the most part, the old currency of the ancient empires being traded, and then and you obviously you still had the barter system, but there was always still a medium of exchange in case the barter system would not was unsatisfactory for.
Well, even the system that they had, I mean, the Knights Templars and the church back then, they had repositories or deposits of gold and silver, and instead of traveling with all of your gold and silver and all your valuables, you could go and deposit it in one place, get a note from the depository, and then travel to another land, hundreds of miles away, and present your note, and they would give you the amount that you had deposited. The amount that you deposit. So there's complete validity in that. But I'm saying those are people with that. When you look at the average person that's not a stacker, that doesn't have a bunch of silver rounds sitting in their they're going to come back to the resources. Either going to be part of the mob and just come and try to take everything and be locust hordes that just ravage the countryside, or we're going to have this, if everything collapses to its lowest level for a season, you're going to have, I think of the Book of Eli, which is a phenomenal movie. He had a lighter and some KFC handy wipes packs, right? And he had a few other things, and he even remarks in there, he's like, these are things we threw away that now are commodities, and he needed a trickle charge on his battery, and he's like, all right, I'll take the lighter and these handy wipes and a couple of these other things, in exchange for this. Whereas they didn't have, and that's all I'm saying is we look at, again, we go, every time we move incrementally, we go, oh, well, we were on the gold standard in this country, and so but long before the gold standard, it was just gold. It was just gold coinage. But there were places where they were like, I don't need your gold. What do you have for commodity? Oh, I've got some bushels of wheat in here. Okay, well, I'll exchange your bushels of wheat for my apples or for whatever I've got. And they didn't even exchange the money. And so as long as we maintain those monetary assumptions of intrinsic value, then we miss out on the actual commerce between us that can have no monetary value placed on it other than what we as two individuals agree upon, you know? And I find the speech by Frances D'Anconio in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged is phenomenal. When she's like, oh, you mean money? Money's the root of all evil. He goes, no, the love of money is the root of all evil. And he goes and does this gorgeous speech. He goes, money is what is the current exchange that I use to value your work and time for what you provide for me. And he goes, I mean, it's several pages in the book, and I actually at one point had the audio version of it, and I could listen to just that speech over and over again, and it was so profound. Go, Dennis.
I'm sorry. This is top-notch stuff. Going back to the articles, there's one other point I think about the articles that is intriguing.
Yeah.
So it said, I think like in perpetual union or something, and people say, well, that perpetual, but they said, well, that word meant something a little bit differently back then. But then there's another point where they said the only way they could change the governmental structure was if all 13 states agreed.
Yeah.
And then of course when the people that wanted to get rid of the articles, they said, oh, if we get, what was it, 2/3, then we can change it. And so it's been pointed out that system right there was a violation of what they had already agreed to.
Right.
In the articles. But I think Gypsy Magic probably has a comment about something or other.
I saw a good comment by Gypsy where he said bartering is a great way for small localized trade. I agree with that. I think bartering can be useful in a lot of situations, but there are a lot of other situations where it cannot be useful and you're at a deadlock. So that's why,
Well, that's my point, is that if we come back to an understanding of fundamental barter, then we can use whatever tool of exchange to balance out the barter. If I say my gas is worth $10 in my can, there's 5 gallons, I'll sell it to you for $2 a can. You hand me the $10 and I go to somebody else. I'm still bartering as long as we are agreed upon the amount. But if I say to you, all right, so whatever you're exchanging with me, instead of the currency being involved, I just say that my gas is worth this many bushels of wheat that you have. Okay, well, if I hand you $10 for your bushels of wheat and you hand me back the $10 for my gas, it's the same thing, but we cut out the middleman. That's all I'm saying is that barter, when we come back to intrinsic value, barter is just the idea that we're using, but you can barter with dollars. That's why they want to track everything digitally, because if we do something here and I hand you $20 and say thanks, I appreciate you doing that work for me. It took you 15 minutes and you did this thing for me. Government goes, well, we want a portion of that. Well, why? This was my barter. He's going to take that $20 and go do something else with it. You have no involvement whatsoever. But as long as they control the currency, they want a portion of that, whether they had any beneficial involvement whatsoever. And so that's all I'm saying, is I'm not trying to exclude money or gold and silver. I'm saying that we can have barter if we don't recognize barter as the fundamental element across the board. If I go to Best Buy and Best Buy tells me this laptop's worth $1,000, okay, well, I'm going to pull out my $1,000. It's still a barter, right? I've walked into Best Buy and I've said, you know what? This is the only model you got on the floor, and you got it for $1,000, and I want this model, but it's been on the floor, so I'm going to give you $800. I've had managers go back, and they come back, and they go, all right, we'll sell it to you for $800. Here you go. That monitor over there was a display model that was on clearance. Okay, save $400 on that thing. It's an expensive monitor but
Eastern Bloc when
is your mic? Where's your mic?
when the
Go on, go.
communist era,
Yeah.
all the eastern part of Europe, this is how they used to do business between each other. They didn't get money and sold.
They weren't
with
allowed
money.
to have currency.
They
a lot of
went
times.
like, okay, I need, let's say, 50 trucks that I'm going to buy from Russia. So what do you guys produce in Albania? We produce a lot of lemons, oranges, and all of this. So send me two boats
of-
with
yeah, two
those
boats.
one, and I'll put the
Exactly.
trucks.
That's the exchange. Dennis, I don't know if you can speak to this, but what was the taxation in the colonies? Was it straight up monetary, or was it? I think a lot of the taxation was that they would show up on your property, and they would say, "We're going to come and take this or take that to satisfy this taxation debt," because they may not have been using a British pound, but they were saying, "Hey, you owe us 3%," or we're gonna. Wasn't it with the? Are you out, George? Here, sign my paper, buddy, before you go. Appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts. Pick a good color.
I'll come more often, but
No, I know, buddy.
down to-
I appreciate you.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not.
Is that what I'm? Is that?
Presumably, but I
Thanks,
don't
George.
I don't know that for sure.
Thanks,
But
buddy.
of course, during a wartime situation, George, nice meeting you.
See you, Gjergji.
All the best. During a wartime situation, of course, that sort of thing happens a lot, right?
Oh, completely.
When the army comes by and they just take what they need. They say the soldiers are hungry, or we got horses. We just
Well,
they tax you that way.
I was going to say about the tea tax. They didn't go over there and go, you're going to receive all the tea, and we're going to take 3% of your money that you got for the tea. They go, we're going to take 3% of the tea.
So now there's an interesting thing about that. The late Gary North said that the big problem with that led to the Tea Party, and of course I guess there was one in Charleston first, but a lot of the leading Americans were smugglers, right? And they were smuggling in Dutch tea because the British government said, no, you have to drink British tea. Well, so they were practicing prohibition.
Yep.
They were violating the right of an individual to possess property honestly earned and to consume it. One decides they want to consume, so the British Americans want to consume Dutch tea. It was made illegal.
Yeah.
So people were smuggling it in. Well, when the according to North, when the British lowered the tax on tea, that also put pricing pressure on the smugglers, and then they were mad about that.
Oh, absolutely.
Plus, apparently, and the British government is saying, well, we still have, we have the right to decide what's going to happen in all cases whatsoever. So they were mad about that too. So
yeah, it's never cut and dry. But as I've studied more and more of the economics, I go, it comes back to barter. It really does. Now you can use a medium of exchange for your barter. Gold and silver is beautiful. Crypto, if the electricity's on and you can do computer exchange. But really comes back to barter. And if we start to think more about barter, and what you said earlier is land, or not land, but property, because we know Jefferson wanted to do life, liberty, and property. Jefferson and Madison both wanted to advocated for life, liberty, and property in the original drafting of the Declaration of Independence, and they were cautioned to back off because they didn't want it to be like feudal lords and slavery and stuff like that. So these are dynamics that I look at that go, man, if we start to get people to think about barter, now it may be that the coins in my pocket or a few Federal Reserve notes that I'm using for that barter, but if I understand fundamentally that I'm just using this tool to exchange your worth for my worth, whatever I have that you want and you have that I want, then we start to break a mentality that it's about the currency itself, because we put the currency on a pedestal, right? We put the gold and silver on a pedestal, but it's about the self-worth of that person. If I come over to buy a table from you, or you buy a table from me, right? I made this table right here, this long table, out of scrap wood. Okay, so my material was almost zero, and it's just hard work and labor to put it together and do all the details. Then if somebody comes and says, I'll offer you this X amount of dollars for that, okay, I have to assess, are those dollars a good barter for what I can then take those dollars and use them for in another area?
So it's all about subjective value, because
exactly, and that's all I'm saying is when we look at it from subjective value and barter, now we start to change how people view the money system or even monetary policy, because now I'm thinking of intrinsic value and those mediums of exchange. And I think that our founding fathers had that understanding on full display, because it didn't matter whether they were coming with British pounds in their pocket. They were coming to the city to sell a couple oxen, but how they sold them was probably a barter. I'm going to sell a couple oxen and I'm going to come back with a wagon load of wheat and or whatever. I'm going to come back with all these other supplies that I wanted. Otherwise, I'm going to be self-sufficient on my own property. We don't have self-sufficiency anymore in this country by and large. If you do, you're called a prepper or whatever. You're vilified, right? If you're the Amish and you can do everything within your own community, you're attacked by the FDA, even though they won't go back after all these other chemical companies and other polluters out there. And so I look at our founding fathers going, it's far beyond just a few simple things that we've been betrayed on, or that they've been betrayed on. It's huge. It's a swath across the board.
It's been a revolution within the form, or a counter-revolution within the form. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of the same symbols, but the government we live under now is the largest government in the history of the world,
Yes,
and it's the opposite of what they fought for.
absolutely. Do you think that and I said it, did I say it Tuesday, Teddy? That I think that the founding fathers formed the best and simultaneously the worst form of government
Yeah.
in the history of man, because it's so based on liberty and so based on freedom that it is equally open to abuses and usurpations like never before. And it's only with what's your favorite quote from Adams? A moral.
Our Constitution was made for a righteous and or religious and moral people. It is wholly inadequate for any other.
Yep.
And if we don't, who was the one that quoted eternal vigilance? What was the one of our founding fathers said? Eternal vigilance is the height of.
Is the cost of liberty? I don't know.
Look, Teddy, look up eternal vigilance quote. But it's
Could have
that
been Franklin, could have been Adams, could have been.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of which one it was. But it's this idea that if we're not vigilant, eternally vigilant, then we will not.
The price of freedom is eternal
Vigilance.
Thomas Jefferson.
Jefferson. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. What was he saying? If you don't pay attention to this government you've established, that as the pinnacle of enshrining liberty, it will be slowly and incrementally eroded and taken over.
Well, isn't that the same thing as I think Jefferson said this too? Something about a tree of liberty.
Must be, yeah.
Refreshed.
Needing to be refreshed.
Yeah.
And he said, you can't have liberty if you expect to have liberty with ignorance. That'll never work. You have to be educated.
You have to be educated, and I think that's the number one thing that we've, the number one betrayal that we've seen, is that we have been dumbed down, and our population has been made ignorant. Over that's when we were talking about schools earlier. That's what George and I were really focused on. Is not that these are stupid people. They're not inherently stupid. These kids coming out of school, but they are wholly ignorant to the forms of government, to sound money policies, to
life skills.
Dude, the kids are not taught how to balance a checkbook, even though a checkbook.
Well, I think that's it could be a bad thing, but I think it's a blessing too, because he's got they have to learn on their own.
If they're forced into it.
Yeah, if they're forced into it, they have to learn on their own, and
right.
So relying on that militarized system, they can actually be more.
I read an article earlier today. There was 3 little boys that have been at the forefront of fighting the lemonade stands. They established a lemonade stand. The local government came in and said, you have to have a permit and you got to pay us X amount of dollars. And they've been continually fighting it, saying this is ridiculous. We're little kids selling lemonade. Who the hell are you to come in here and demand, a quarter for every dollar that I spent, that I do on my lemonades? You've brought me no intrinsic value, no benefit for your involvement. It is a mafia. And so there are those kids that stand up. They're few and far in between. Most of them They tucked their heads. There was I'm not a big Fox guy, but there was a Fox thing where they did a man on the street, and they asked all these people what the 4th of July meant, or even what independence, and one person, they had one girl on there that got most of the questions right. Actually, all her questions she answered. The other people were clueless. When was the Declaration of Independence signed? I don't know. When was that? Like August, something like that. It's July 4th, if you believe that widely held number. But it's like they were so abjectly ignorant. It was disgusting. And that's not the only. This is just the current one on the table. And so our population has become extremely ignorant, and therefore they can be bought off and they can be controlled.
And easily influenced.
Easily influenced.
Yep.
And that's our biggest difficulty.
So we have to fight against that.
Educating people. And that's what we want to do here. And I don't want to just be in a small echo chamber here, of our audience. Our audience is phenomenal, but it's like you want to reach out to other people. And I do see it. Grassroots. We hung out with people at the lake people I never met before, and they were right on page with us.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up.
Yeah.
As part of the Gypsy Magic generation.
Absolutely. Give me a quick signature, gentlemen. Any final thoughts? You want to go first, Dennis? Your final thought?
My final thought is we've received many blessings.
100%. Yeah.
We are blessed by the Almighty with liberty because we are made in His image. He is free, therefore we are made free. And we have no king but Christ.
Yes.
And there's no earthly government, no earthly organization that supersedes that.
Absolutely.
And I would say that liberty first, God first, the Lord's sovereignty, our rights granted to us, and we may delegate temporary authority, but delegate means we can recall it.
100%.
And that was really the basis of the way the constitutional system was supposed to be set up. And we should remember all the great sacrifices made by the men and women leading up to and during the time of the American Revolution and the signers of the Declaration of Independence and the fight for freedom and liberty that has gone on since then. And remember to pay them proper respect for all their sacrifices, which sadly is being lost now.
Amen. Dennis Marburger. Sign away. Teddy?
Thanks, sir.
Sign it right away? All right, I'm not going to switch cameras. No, and while you're doing that, Tim Allen was pointing out in the chat, he said, when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people go into hiding. He didn't do that second part of the verse, but that's it. Teddy, go.
Well, my final thought is that we are living in there's a lot to be thankful for and a lot to celebrate, but as of now, we're living in a unrighteous society, unrighteous.
You mean like drag queen story time?
Well, part of that, but we're under a wicked government that will tax us 50 times compared to what the British would tax the colonists, and
yeah,
due to ignorance or people not caring or just apathy.
Yep.
People don't care or they just go along with it, and then we're just seeing our freedoms, our privacy being slowly eroded. So my final thought is that we have to organize. We got to ditch the uniparty. We got to educate people on what's going on, and we got to actually try and restore personal and national liberty and freedom and righteousness throughout the country, if not just hopefully our local areas at the bare minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's beautiful, Teddy. And I appreciate that was like not fully black-pilled. He had some positives in there.
Is it black pill or is it realism? You be the judge.
Oh man, now you're throwing a curve at me. No, this was a great discussion, and I always appreciate you, Dennis, of course, when I can get you, and Teddy's here on a regular basis. But I love the two of you going back and forth, and then I get to chime in and try to act like I'm on the same par with you guys historically. But it's beautiful.
Another thing I wanted to add real quick.
No, I'm still.
Oh, sorry.
Go.
Sorry, I was being like Larry right there.
Yeah, you were.
One more thing I wanted to be. It was nice to have Gjergji back on.
Yes.
And I really wanted to hear more from him. How compared to because he grew up under Enver
Shared communism.
Hoxha and the Stalinist regime in Albania. So I really wanted to hear from him.
Yeah.
Emphasize like how more, how it could be, how much more personal freedom he received when he became an American compared to what he grew up in such a regime.
And I didn't touch on that. That was one of the things. The reason I really brought him. I was like, I wanted you to tell me what you learned or the ideas that were conveyed to you about America when you were under communism. Was there any of this ideas of the founding fathers? Was there any of this idea of liberty? What was the appeal, or was it just this is a better place than communism,
Right.
Because even not Stalin, who was after
Khrushchev?
Khrushchev. When Khrushchev came over here to America, one of his first visits, right? He came over for a UN speech or something like that. And as he's walking through getting a tour of it, he was blown away. He couldn't believe the prosperity and the freedoms. And that was part of he was like, okay. And that was part of the reasons he was willing to do deals with Kennedy and not go to war and not do all these other things. He still maintained a hardline communist, but when he saw the prosperity, he was like, what? Dude, this is incredible, because he thought his system worked, and it clearly didn't.
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was.
That's all right, Larry. I appreciate you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. Let's continue the discussion amongst yourselves out there in our crowd, and we will catch you guys on Tuesday. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Do all of that stuff. You want to support the show, go to thealexjonesstore.com/thisismybrain, thealexjonesstore.com/thisismybrain, and get some great products on there. I'm about to do a new order, and I think a couple of my people are doing new orders. I'm going to get the colostrum gummies. That's my next big thing, as well as getting my turmeric gummies back. I've been out of them for a few weeks. But with that, guys, thank you for tuning in tonight. We appreciate you tuning in on this 5th of July and celebrating with us the historical understanding of the American Revolution and what that all is. We'll catch you guys on Tuesday.
This is my brain.
Dad, that's an egg.
Yeah, that's an egg.
Honey,
dude,
that's an egg.
Seriously.
That's an egg.
It's a metaphor.
It's still an egg.
That's an egg.
I would challenge you.
That's an egg.
I know my brain is not actually an egg, okay? It's a metaphor.
Metaphor or not, that's not your brain.
It's just an egg.
Una cerveza para mí. My egg is my brain.
Can I at least have some bacon, maybe some sausage with that egg, though?
Oh, I want some bacon.
I want crepes.
Have some bacon and pancakes with that egg.
I'll take it with cheese.
Extra large brown cage-free eggs.
Can I have your brain with hot cakes?
A little sausage and a little toast and potato.
That would be great.
Does it have antibiotics?
I don't know, man. I'm not good at this shit.
Well, they got to be able to resist some diseases.
You resist the disease.
Has it got any hormones?
Maybe. It's cage free.
Vegetarian?
Maybe.
Are they vegan?
No, I eat steak.
Never apologize and never explain.
Never apologize.
Yeah. Never apologize and never explain.